Good afternoon. We're back for the afternoon session of day 19,736. No, day 19. Afternoon of day 19 of the Karen Reed case. It is Monday, June 3rd. The witness that's on the stand works at the State of Massachusetts Crime Lab, and we are resuming with direct examination. I did a quick summary as we left for the very shortened lunch break today. And remember, for the schedule this week, it is going to be a little wild. There is no live court Tuesday tomorrow, June 4th. Emily, what month is it? 100 years since I've been in this trial, June 4th. But I will be covering the half day that I have not yet covered from last week. We're going to zoom through some of the background training and experience and get to the heart of that testimony. So we have that here. So with all of that, if you don't have the Lawnerd app, it is a free app for you if you want to have it for this trial and then go from there. I completely understand, but the Lawnerd app will keep you in the loop of streaming times. What time am I streaming tomorrow? It depends on when my child needs to be somewhere, and that is up in the air, so we'll see what's going on tomorrow. But tomorrow, it's going to be a brief day in court. And then for the members, I'll be recording a podcast, and then Wednesday will be a full day of court. Thursday will be a brief day in court. Friday will be a no day in court. So with all of that, we are going to head back to court now, and we are going to be pulling up a different feed. Our feed, just like the feed that we regularly use, just like yeeted itself. So we're going to grab the court TV feed. I don't think during this trial they've been taking breaks during the testimony, which they had done in the past, which really was just like a no for me, dog. So we'll see how it goes with this feed, but they're one of the few that picked up the judge getting salty with the attorneys right as they were coming back from lunch. For those of you that don't know me, hi, I'm Emily. I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to roll the intro. We're just going to go to court. I hope that works for all of you. It sure works for me. Let's go. Emily, that was a lot. Yes, it was. So let's take a listen to the judge letting the attorneys know that she is not happy. And when I say the judge is telling the attorneys, the judge is telling Lally. This is the judge telling the prosecutor that you have to do this faster. So let's take a listen.
So we have to do a better job of streamlining all of these exhibits. What I'd like you to...
I will say some of this is a judge-created problem because some of these were supposed to be pre-marked. And then she said, I don't want them pre-marked. I want them marked in order. And then everything got crazy. And so some of this is a judge-created problem.
To do is every day, no later than 8 o'clock in the morning, let Madam Court Reporter know how many exhibits you think there are going to be for the day, because you may or may not know, but each sticker, Madam Court Reporter puts the exhibit number, the date, and her initials.
We
and
know.
That takes a lot of time. So if we can streamline that.
You told them not to pre-mark the exhibits. 6 weeks ago, I lost my mind because they had started pre-marking the exhibits. And then you said, no, I want them in the order that they're coming in on. Do you know what's so frustrating? I can yell. The lawyers can't. The lawyers can't say, you created this problem by shifting in the middle. So now you're mad at Lally for something that is kind of his fault because he's slow at everything, but also kind of your fault, Your Honor, because they had tried to fix it at the beginning and you undid what they were doing.
That would be much better. How many more do you expect to have for today?
May we approach just on that?
Okay.
This is a you problem. And this is why I start a little late. A, I always run late anyway. But B, where's the defendant? Did the defendant approach or is the defendant not in the courtroom yet? Sometimes it looks like the audience is now coming back in while everyone, including the pool of reporters and the victim's family. So we're gonna zoom. That's the defense tech person. Again, I love being able to zoom just a little bit. Chat, did you all get some lunch? I hope you did. Mine is sitting here, so the defendant is coming back into court. I'm gonna have to at some point minimize myself and eat.
We can line them up and bring them in.
I think she's talking about the jury. Line them up and bring them in. Whew. So they're going to be bringing in the... Yeah, the judge should have anticipated that she was slowing things down.
You are unmuted.
The jury's coming in now. The jury is now back in.
All right, could we have the witness, please?
I'm going to put us at 1.25. Though if we start going through pictures, I'll slow it back down again. Janet in the chat asked, do I sell user data from your app? No, absolutely not, Janet. We do not. All of the data in our app is proprietary to Team Baker. We do not sell it. We do not share it with our advertisers. We share how many people are in the app with our advertisers, and that is it. We do not sell user data out of our app. This community is special to me, and that is not what is happening. So thank you for asking.
All right, Mr. Lally.
We are sped up at 1.25 speed. Kimberly said, just popped in. Has it been a stressful morning? It's been kind
Good
of
afternoon, Ms. Hart.
laundering.
So with respect to the photographs that were just marked as exhibits of the orange T-shirt, that was item that was marked as 7-1. Is that correct?
When we get to the photos, I'll slow down and then speed back up.
Yes, that's correct.
That's what we're going to
So
do.
similar to how you
Gonna do
had
it
marked
to it.
off areas of either damage or red-brown stains, was that similar to what you did with the gray hooded sweatshirt? Is that similar to what you did with the orange T-shirt as well?
Yes, that's correct.
And then there were two other clothing items that you examined, being a pair of jeans and a set of sneakers, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with reference to the jeans, that was marked as item 7-1. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm glad
And
we're
with
going to
respect
see the
sneakers,
jeans.
that was marked as item 7-4. Is that correct?
Each sneaker.
I do want to say, for all of you, look, I don't like it when my data is sold either, and I fight quite hard against it. Y'all, we are a community supported community up in here. There is absolutely no need. We paid for the app so that it would be a better user experience for y'all who will be like me and get distracted doing the things you need to do in the day and then be like, shit, I didn't want to miss that witness live because I wanted to be in the live chat with everybody, watching it live and chatting with my law nerd friends all together. So we built the app to do this, to facilitate this community. So we're here for this community. Every decision Team Baker makes is to facilitate and to help our community. So we make choices based on what's best for our community. Selling data is not a choice that is best for our community. It's not best for anyone, I don't think. And we have advertisers that support the podcast and support this community, and that is what is needed. So we work with companies that want to work with us. I'm a partner with Streamyard who helps support us. So we never need to sell your data. And absolutely, we would disclose that to you, but that's not something we're ever going to do. It's proprietary to our company. No one else needs to know that. And then we do tell people how many users are in the app because they forget how powerful this community is. We're never selling their info. No. This community is very, very important to me. So, of course, and you're welcome. For those of you that are new, I appreciate the questions because some of you are new to the law nerd community. We're special here. And we break things and we break people's brains because they don't understand. They're like, wait a second, this community is different. We're like, it is. And we love that.
At its own item number, one was 7-3 and one was 7-4.
Oh, now she sounds too fast. All right. You might get sped back up, but for now, we're going to see.
And with respect to the evidence as far as the stickers and sort of the denotations that you had made in regard to either damage or red-brown stains, was that similarly done with respect to each of those remaining clothing items as well?
Yes, that's correct.
You know what I may approach?
Yes.
Ms. Hartnett, with respect to the jeans, showing you a series of 8 photographs. Do you recognize those?
We're going to see the victims. It looks like pants. Those look like jeans.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are photographs that I took of the pair of jeans.
And what's contained in those photographs, a fair and accurate portrayal of your observations of those jeans when you conducted your examination of them at the lab.
Yes, that's correct.
I wish
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Lally would ask when
Almost
this was
introduced
done,
in the mid.
because we're going to find out.
All right, and there's
when the
no
defense
objection, you
asks.
said, Mr. Jackson, correct?
No, there's no objection to any of this. Batty Cuz said mailing lists and phone lists are unfortunately very lucrative. This community is more important to me than that. So it's so funny because even at large conferences, people are like, if you covered XYZ topic, you could get more, more views. And I'm like, it's not about more views. It's about finding the law nerds and covering what the law nerds want to cover. And it breaks people's brains because we're motivated by community, not by anything else. So we run everything past community first. We did not miss the t-shirt. The t-shirt should be coming up.
Yes, please.
And I think coming up next is I'm scrubbing down through the bottom. So.
Some of the photographs in the packet from 232 to 241.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have, photograph 9862.
Oh, I didn't even turn my notebook on.
Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen that's now been marked as Exhibit 231?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's a photograph I took of item 7-17, the orange T-shirt, and it's the exterior
It's
front.
the victim's shirt.
And Ms. Gilman, 9863. And again, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 232?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the exterior back of item 7-17.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9867. And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on sort of the upper.
All of the markings on the bottom of this say May 15th, 2023.
Right portion of that where the stickers are. Now, Ms. Hardy, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 233?
Yes, I do.
And again, using the laser pointer, if you could draw the jury's attention to any items that
Why?
any areas of this shirt that you marked on.
I marked 3 specific red-brown stains using these stickers and letters A, B, and C.
Those are
And
very
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask
small,
you to keep the zoom in, but go to the bottom left.
almost droplet looking.
And similarly, Ms. Hartnett, within this zoomed-in portion of Exhibit 233, could you, using the laser pointer, to draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, you noted there?
I noted red-brown stain D, which I marked with the sticker, and D on the bottom right.
Yeah, it's odd to me too that this is all happening in May.
Photograph 9873. And Ms. Hartnett, what's up on the screen is now been marked as Exhibit 239. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on the upper left portion of the photograph.
So on
Again,
my
Ms.
different
Hartnett, if you
monitors,
could,
the shirt
using
looks
laser
more or
pointer,
less
just draw the jury's
orange,
attention to what, if anything, you noted there.
but
I noted this specific red-brown stain, and I marked it E.
Thank you. And Your Honor, similarly with the court's permission, if I could publish what's been marked now as Exhibit 242 through 249.
Okay.
y'all, I don't know why it took so long to
Ms.
process.
Gilman, if I could
I
have
bet it'll come up
photograph
in cross.
9878.
Like, I bet it'll come up in cross. What is happening? What, if anything, is happening? It seems like the signal to the TV wasn't working and the witness was flipping through pages.
Ms. Hartnett, direct your attention of the screen with now marked as exhibit 242. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's a photograph of the exterior front of the jeans with the belt, item 7-1.
So those are, that is what EMS would have taken off of the victim. And I think this is probably a reminder as to why I stick to the evidence that is presented in court. So let's continue. So this is the victim's jeans and belt.
9887. And as you testified before, similarly to the other clothing items that you testified about, did you mark off certain items of interest or areas of interest on this item as well with respect to the jeans?
Yes, I did.
And is that depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9888.
I have not, in chat, I have not seen in court that the belt was missing, other than the defense opening statement. But there is a belt on these pants.
And if you could just zoom in.
Because I don't think anyone said in court, and I might be wrong that the defense
Again, Ms. Hartnett.
said it. I don't think anyone said in court that this belt was missing, ever.
If you could,
it has never come up in testimony.
Direct the jury's attention to those areas that you noticed or that you marked off in respect to this.
I marked off red brown stains A, B, C, D, and E on the front of those jeans.
Thank you. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
You guys, I don't remember if the defense said it was missing.
Hartnett showing you another series of client photographs.
But May 2023, it's there. So Greg said, Emily, the defense never said the belt was missing. Thank you, Greg. I mean, I've seen it in the chat. I try to stay off of social media where this case is
Do you recognize what's depicted
discussed.
in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photographs of the sneakers, items 7-3 and 7-4.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
which is why I try to stick to what is being
Your Honor, the
presented
Commonwealth seek to
in court.
introduce the next exhibits.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have both shoes. We are still missing a hat. I think the judge is annoyed because this is taking so long. And that annoyance, I keep hearing in her voice is annoyance with Lally. I know you guys, some think she is super pro Lally. I think she is pissed that he is taking so long. That's my read on it. And my read only.
Thank you.
The judge is mad this is going so slow.
Ms. Hartnett, with reference to the sneakers and sort of the other clothing items that you received, do you recall how or where or when it was that you received each of those respective clothing items?
Silently me, she has been telling Lally to speed
Or
up.
how the lab did, you know?
They were received by
as
the
best as she
lab
can.
from the Norfolk detective unit.
And as far as the sneakers being labeled with two different stickers, do you know why that was?
One of the
They were
sneakers was recovered from
differently.
34 Fairview Road, and one of the sneakers was recovered from the hospital.
Emily, let the witness answer. Yep.
Now, with
showed you.
reference to the photographs that I've just placed before you, have you had a chance to look at those?
These ones here?
Yes,
No.
if you could. And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs now?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are the fingernail clippings that were submitted for John O'Keefe
And do you know where they were submitted from?
by the Norfolk County Detective Unit.
May I approach you?
Yes.
I'll call them up and introduce the minutes the next exhibit.
Okay.
Nicole said Emily isn't They're usually a clerk to check in evidence. Yes. I don't know why the reporter does it. I don't know if it's this courtroom or this jurisdiction. I don't know. But yes, normally the clerk does it. Tiffany asks, is the burden of proof lower at the grand jury? Yes, much. Yes, substantially lower. Probable cause is the standard for like a search warrant for a grand jury. It's more of a more likely than not standard. It is a much lower
Your Honor,
standard.
with respect to each of those, I'm not seeking to publish those to the jury at this time. So
Okay.
Court officer.
The lights back on, please.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, with respect to those stains on the gray sweatshirt, the orange T-shirt, and the jeans, what, if any, testing was done with respect to those stains?
A screening test was performed on each of the Rembrandt stains on those items. I'm sorry, did you say the sneakers? Could you repeat what items you're speaking of?
With respect to each
His
of those
questions are bad.
respective clothing items,
It's not
what,
you,
if any,
ma'am.
testing was done with regard to any stains you observed on those items of clothing?
It's not
For
you.
the sweatshirt, the T-shirt, and the jeans, I saw visible red brown stains, which I screened for blood. The majority were also, I also performed a confirmatory test for blood. There was one stain on the orange T-shirt, however, that was too small to perform that confirmatory test. So for that instance, I noted that the stain was quantity limited, and I preserved it after the positive screening test instead of performing a confirmatory test in order to preserve enough material for any DNA analysis. As far as the sneakers, given their dark color, I did not see any visible red-brown stains on the black area of the sneakers, so I used an alternate light source to aid in visualizing any potential blood on those sneakers. With that alternate light source, I tested several stains on the sneakers, one of which screened positive for blood.
Now, with respect to the other clothing items that you were talking about doing the screening test and the confirmatory test for blood, with respect to the gray sweatshirt, the orange T-shirt, and the jeans, what were the results of that screening test and that
Julie, we are
confirmatory
still
test
on
that you
direct.
ran, with regard to each of those?
The screening test and the confirmatory test were positive.
This is necessary foundation for the scientific testing. I know in the colloquial sense it seems obvious that a injured human
Now,
would
beyond
be
the
bleeding,
stains, did
but
you
this
take
has
any
to be
additional
proven.
samples from those items?
Yes, I did.
And what were the?
If you do not prove that it's blood, the arguments will be that could be anything, we don't know. So common sense is not going to get you there on the scientific evidence. You have to lay all this foundation.
And how was that done?
For each of the items, I picked up any loose trace material, which would be hairs and fibers or apparent hairs and fibers that were adhering to the item. I also did a scraping and swabbing for skin cell collection of the unstained areas, and that involves taking a sterile scalpel and swabbing the areas of the clothing that don't have any visible stains on them, and then taking 2 cotton swabs and swabbing that same area, and then combining those scrapings and swabs for potential DNA analysis. In addition to those, I also took a scraping of each of the materials, and that involves taking the item, using something like a flat metal spatula, and scraping down whatever adhering materials left on the item into a glassine packet.
And as far as those items, once they're collected from the material or from the clothing, what do you do with them from there?
Each of those items is given its own item number. It's a sub-item of the overall larger number used to mark the item, and those are sent to the appropriate units for additional testing.
Linda
as far
asked
as
if they drove
preservation is
Karen's
concerned, when
car
it
to
comes
the
to
scene that day. They did not. The scene, Karen was taken to the scene by Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts' SUV. Her car was there. Karen's SUV was there in the evening. Then she went back to John O'Keefe's place, presumably slept, got up, found he wasn't there, made phone calls, went out in the car, came back, then went with Carrie and all of them. Hopefully that helps.
Something to
That's
either the
based
trace
on what's
unit
in
or
evidence
the
so
DNA
far.
unit. What, if any, steps are taken in regard to preserving those items once they're removed from the clothing and sent off to the other units?
Each of those items would be preserved according to protocol. They are sealed properly, initial and dated with my initials and date. They're entered into our LIMS system, so those sub-items could then be tracked throughout the laboratory, and they're stored in the appropriate storage unit.
generally these direct examinations should go pretty smoothly because you know what's coming. Like,
At some
it's
point,
not.
did you also receive?
Your witness isn't going to go rogue when they're like a scientific witness. There's generally just a, you know, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, and you just go through it like. This is Emily. You should expect nothing less. This is frustratingly wandering.
Items that were labeled as 3-2 and 3-3.
I submitted those when I returned from the original scene.
And what were those, ma'am?
Those were pieces of glass from the bumper and a drinking glass from the crime scene.
Did you examine those items?
Yes, I did.
And what, if any, examination did you do, and what is it that you were looking for in your examination?
I did a visual examination, and I took photographs, and then I also took a collection from each of the items.
And did you do any testing on those items?
No, I did not.
And
Amy
what
asked-
kind of samples did you collect from those items?
Amy asked if any of the other
I
cars
took
were tested.
potential skin cell collection using a swab
Doesn't seem to
moistened
be.
with sterile water.
And as far as the samples that you took from, as well as the items themselves, what, if anything, did you do with reference to those once you were done with your examination?
The swabs were preserved for testing in the DNA unit, and the original items, the apparent pieces of glass and the drinking glass, were preserved for the trace unit.
Justin asked
As
today
far
a
as those
specific amount of
preservations were
time.
concerned,
No.
is that similar to the preservation process you were describing earlier with regard to the clothing items?
Yes, that's correct.
So both Ms. Lally and Ms. Hartnett, you have to keep your voices up, or we have to turn the air conditioning off.
Understood, Your Honor.
It's very hot in this courtroom. There is air conditioning and fans. I can hear them pretty well, but
I may have one moment, Your Honor.
it
Yes.
seems that the jury can't, and the judge is reminded them of
Right,
this.
cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Miguelina, if you want to send another app notification that we have moved to cross-examination, we are moving to the cross-examination of this witness with Alan Jackson.
Ms. Hartnett, you responded to Canton Police Department. A lot of your testimony was about what happened in the Sally Port, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You were asked if you responded to the Canton Police Department on February 2nd, and most of your testimony was predicated on that date, you going over there and doing some visual observations, as well as some removal of items and some other testing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Was it February 2nd or was it February 1st?
May I check my notes?
I'd appreciate it if you did, yes.
This courtroom does have air
My
conditioning.
apologies, that was my error. It was
But the building was built in the 1800s. It does not have much air conditioning, so they need to use fans.
February 1st.
Okay. So
Old
everything
building.
that you testified to, you only went once.
Yes, that's correct.
So everything that you testified to having taken place on February 1st, we should assume it was actually on February 2nd, we should assume it was actually February 1st, the one time you were there.
I'm
Yes, I was
surprised
there one
Lally
time.
didn't catch
Okay.
that.
Were you dispatched to the Sally Port? And I apologize, I'm not yelling at you. I'm trying to keep my voice elevated, so just so you know.
Understood.
It's not my normal speaking voice.
He's like, the yelling at you comes, ma'am, the yelling at you comes later.
You were dispatched at the behest of one of the Massachusetts State Troopers, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The Detective Bureau specifically, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Trooper Proctor more specifically, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Trooper Proctor, you knew at that time to be the lead detective, the person that was in control of the investigation.
May I check my notes who I wrote down as the lead investigator at that
If it
time?
would refresh your recollection, sure. With the court's permission.
Yes.
He's asking.
Yes, I was told on scene that Trooper Proctor was in charge of the investigation.
All right. Now, while you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to just do an overview of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Obviously, that was important given the limited information that you had at that time about a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
So you were looking for anything that would rise to a level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Hence your review and notation of certain scratches on the vehicle. Is that right?
Yes.
Which may or may not have anything to do with the incident, but you noted it anyway, correct?
Yes.
I did not draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from.
Okay, you just took the words right out of my mouth. My next question, the dent that you noted and photographed, you made no conclusion that that occurred as a result of a motor vehicle pedestrian
It's
incident.
like, I noted
correct?
what I saw.
That's correct.
The scratches, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them. The scratches that you did
I was trying to move the closed captioning.
noted and had photographed, you made no conclusions about that having anything to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
Even the broken taillight.
No, Chet,
At
we're
that
on
point, you
normal
made
speed.
no conclusions or drew no scientific conclusions about that having anything at all to do with a
Jackson
motor vehicle pedestrian
talks California
incident, correct?
fast.
That's correct.
You did, however, look for tissue, human tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the car itself. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
In that review, I think you testified that you saw nothing that suggested the transfer of human tissue to the vehicle, correct?
I did not see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle.
You were told, Ms. Hartnett, that there were scratches on one of the extremities of John O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
Were you shown a photograph of those scratches to assist you in your visual review or examination of that vehicle?
Not at that time, no.
To this date, have you seen a photograph of his arm and the injuries to his arm?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, if I may, if we have it, could I display for the jurors and for Ms. Hartnett Exhibit 19?
Is this the one that's
The arm
that's covered a bit?
has been
Okay.
propped,
Yes.
Your Honor.
Oh my God, Emily, zoom. Girl, get it together. Sorry, y'all.
Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in Exhibit 19?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of scratches previously, correct?
Yes, I've seen a photo containing
Okay,
something
and that's
similar.
consistent with the photo that you've seen since your visit to the Sallyport on February 1st, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Was there anything in your, by the way, did you look at all around the vehicle 360 degrees?
Yes, I did.
Did you look toward the top of the vehicle as well as toward the bottom of the vehicle?
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle.
Say
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle.
Understood. Did you examine the undercarriage of the vehicle?
I did look at the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And you know what I mean when I say undercarriage.
Yes.
Could you explain for the jurors what you mean when you use the word undercarriage?
The parts
I'm
that
trying not
normally
to
you would
make
have to see by,
jokes.
bending over or laying underneath the car to view what's underneath the vehicle.
That
I'm
would
trying not to
include
make
the frame,
undercarriage
the axle
jokes.
and the drive shaft, transmission, things of that nature.
Yes, I'm not confident in all the terminology of the undercarriage, but yes.
Did you
Underneath the
see
vehicle.
anything that was suggestive of or consistent with the pattern of injury that you see to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm?
I wouldn't say I'm qualified to make any kind of pattern determination and what would match the injuries on his arm.
She's not.
So the answer to my question is, as you sit here, you made no observation of anything on the SUV that matched these injuries, correct?
That's not her
Check.
job.
I wouldn't be.
Go ahead and answer that.
She's going to answer
I wouldn't be
again.
able to testify from that from memory. I don't have a photograph of the undercarriage, nor did I make any kind of conclusions about that at the time.
That's not her
Okay,
job.
understood. And you didn't take any, I'm sorry, the swabs and samples that you did take variously on the car all came back negative for human tissue, et cetera.
The testing that I did on scene from the various areas of the undercarriage, which I mentioned before, the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, and the exhaust pipe, screened negative for blood.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, can we take this down?
I was just going to suggest that. Thank you, Your Honor. On February 1st, 2002, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle itself, you also mentioned that you took swabs of what you believe to be blood evidence contained in 6 solo cups, correct?
Yes, I noted those as frozen red-brown stains in red cups.
Were those solo cups in any way labeled among themselves? In other words, solo cup 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't believe they were, but I don't have a photograph of that, so I'm not 100% sure.
You did not thereafter label those solo cups. If they hadn't been done beforehand, you did not undertake that to label those solo cups, correct?
No, I did not label them.
Did you, how did you take those swabs? Was the swab done in one solo cup, or did you take a swab from all 6, or how did you take those swabs that you ultimately
Jackson
did
is now
take?
so loud.
I took those swabs from one solo cup.
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups you were going to take a swab from?
Wait,
I don't recall.
you didn't swab all of them? Wait. Did you? I was singing and missed something that actually was helpful. Did you just say you only swabbed one? Not each one. Ma'am, what?
Your Honor.
I might have backed
On
up too far
February
in my
1st,
rage.
2002, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle itself, you also mentioned that you took swabs of what you believe to be blood evidence contained in 6 solo cups, correct?
Why don't you swab each
Yes,
one?
I noted those as frozen red-brown stains in red cups.
Were those solo cups in any way labeled among themselves? In other words, solo cup 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't believe they were, but I don't have a photograph of that, so I'm not 100% sure.
We know
You
they
did not
weren't.
thereafter label those solo cups. If they hadn't been done beforehand, you did not undertake that to label those solo cups, correct?
No, I did not label them.
Did you, how did you take those swabs? Was the swab done in one solo cup, or did you take a swab from all 6, or how did you take those swabs that you ultimately did take?
I took those swabs from one solo cup.
Why?
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups you were going to take a swab from?
I don't recall exactly how I chose which cup. It was reported to me that those cups came from the same area of red-brown staining, so I assume, you make an assumption that they're all related. It came from what I was told, it came from one area of red-brown stain at the scene.
And you, of course, know as a forensic criminalist that blood stains can contain multiple contributors, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You don't know as you sit here which blood stain found at the scene related to which solo cup in the bag, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
That's correct.
No, it was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain, but I was not there.
From the same.
I'm going to scream. No, I'm not. My goat is going to scream. My goat did not scream loud enough. Her assumption is based on her being told they were all part of the same stain. If they were all part of the same stain, if you had a large area of stain and you scooped different parts of it, then I can see a lab saying we're only testing one area of all of this stain. But that's not accurate because they were all discretely different drops. We saw the video. They were not part of one big stain. They were discretely different drops. So, based on what she was told, they're all 6 samples from the same thing is different than what they are in actuality. So I want to know who told her or if she misunderstood, because they were all from the same area, but they were discrete and different droplets, not from the same large stain. So I want to know if they told her the wrong information or if she made an assumption based on what they were saying that they're all from the same area, that she interpret area to mean one large stain, not same location, but it's her job to be clear And if law enforcement isn't making it clear, then she needs to ask. Because otherwise, why wouldn't you just take one big cup full of stuff? Oh, boy. Okay.
Same scene or
Stain, excuse me. It was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain.
okay.
Right.
If they in fact were taken from multiple stains, you would have no way of knowing that as you sit here.
That's correct.
He reminded the jury. We all
And
remembered
ultimately,
immediately.
once you did take that swab from that single solo cup, what did you do with the rest of that blood evidence?
I left that with the Canton Police Department.
I can't believe she only tested one. I should stop being surprised by this case, but I will never stop being surprised by this case because everything.
Was there any of the swab? By the way, I should ask this. I've been saying swabs. Was there one swab taken of that one solo from that one solo cup, or were there multiple swabs taken?
There were 2 swabs taken.
Of those
the
2
victim's
swabs,
family has to be
did
so
you seek to
fucking
do DNA
mad.
testing, or was DNA testing
should be
done on either one
mad.
of those or both of them?
DNA testing was not done on those swabs.
So as we sit here now, there's been no DNA confirmation of what who that blood relates to, I should say.
What?
There was no testing done on it at all.
And so therefore we would not know if there were multiple.
What? Lally's kind of burying the lead. Yes, the rest of the solo cups are left at Canton PD, but no DNA testing was done. Did everybody just be like, oh, well, that was the victim's?
Confirmation of what who that blood relates to, I should say.
There was no testing done on it at all.
And so therefore we would not know if there were multiple contributors to
What?
those stains or that swab that you took from that single solo cup.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's not on her. That's
And again,
on
the
the
remainder of all
investigators.
of that solo cup, as well as all the other
Jesus.
5 solo cups, was retained by Canton Police at the Canton Police Department in the control of the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, correct?
I don't know who was in control of it once I returned it to the Canton Police Department.
Who did you return it to at the Canton Police Department? Whom, I should say.
I believe I gave it to a Canton police officer. I don't know which officer that was.
Chat, for all of you asking why swab it, it's her job to kind of swab and preserve everything. And then it is either the lead investigator and sometimes the DA and sometimes 2 of them together deciding what gets sent out. But not testing everything is freaking wild to me. But it gives the defense a ton of room. This might be a case where the investigation is so bad that we will never know the answers. But it gives the defense a ton of room to fill in those gaps with their theories and poke holes in doubt because the investigation was not handled well at all. This investigation is just infuriating.
Michael Proctor was at the Sally Port at the time that you were doing your examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Did he not take control of it himself?
Jesus
Not that I
Christ.
saw. I don't know who took control of them once I was done with my collection.
May have, you just don't know.
Correct.
Okay. Going back to some of the damage that you did note on the vehicle, that vehicle looked like it had been driven to a certain degree, right?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
I'm not. If you could clarify the question, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Terrible question.
Any of you feeling better
let me
about
try again.
SLED's investigation
That
now?
vehicle was not a vehicle that had clearly just come off the showroom floor and had not been in use, based on your examination.
What?
I don't think I am qualified to make that kind of decision.
It looked like there was some normal wear and tear on the car.
I mean,
Other
that's-
than the specific items that I pointed out earlier, the dent and the scratches, the exterior was in overall good condition. So I can't say specifically if it was driven I don't think I can make that conclusion unless you want to rephrase the question.
You didn't have any reason to believe that car was in any other condition than it had been owned and driven by somebody, right? Or could you make that conclusion?
I mean,
I don't think I can make
that's
that
not her
conclusion.
job.
So it could have been an absolute.
He's asking her things that are well without her scope, and she is being very careful to say, I can only offer testimony on what I did. obviously the car looks driven, right? But she's like, I can't say for certain what was going on with the car because I don't know if it was in a drivable condition, not in a drivable condition. She wasn't there to test that. But the defense is doing a good job of asking witnesses things that aren't their job. We see this in most criminal cases to make it look like you guys can't even answer this question. They're bad questions, but it can make it look like the witness is being evasive. I don't think she is in this. I think she's standing her ground and she should, but that is the job.
Absolutely brand new, right off the showroom
Obviously,
floor
it's not brand
car?
new.
I guess I don't have any understanding of what could have happened to it in the showroom. I'm not sure I understand the line of questioning.
But why don't we move along?
Fair enough.
She's like,
I guess what I'm
It was
asking
dirty?
is, did you've done some damage analysis in the past? Obviously, this was not your first rodeo, right?
I don't do damage analysis on vehicles.
Okay. Did this car look like it had
processes
reasonably normal
vehicles.
wear and tear on it? That's my question.
she doesn't do damage analysis. That's asked and answered.
I don't feel comfortable answering that question.
I now sound like I'm from, it's asked and answered.
Ultimately,
She
the
doesn't do
right
damage
rear taillight
analysis.
housing was removed, correct?
Let's
Yes,
talk
that's
about
correct.
Were you the person, Ms. Hartnett, who actually used the tools to remove that taillight, be it screwdrivers, wrenches, anything else?
No.
Who was that actually did that work?
It was a Canton police officer that had entered the garage, and as I was removing it, he offered to help. He said he knew how to basically take it out of the housing, which at that point, I was not sure how I would do that.
Okay. I'd like to show you an exhibit.
Rolling along, said I worked in forensics for a short time, and standard, you test each and every sample that comes in. There's so much in this case.
You'd been shown
Yeah.
just a few minutes ago before the
yeah.
lunch break.
It's odd.
187 with the court's permission.
Okay.
Does that look like the same housing that you removed
And then they
from
never
the
even
SUV, or
tested it.
you saw being removed from the SUV?
Yes, that is the taillight housing that I submitted to the lab from the garage.
Ultimately,
Okay,
there
chat,
was a
I'm going to answer a question because this came up in earlier testimony so long ago, but there was another Canton police officer. It was not Higgins. It was not any of the officers involved here, who also does a lot of mechanic work on hobby cars and what have you, who was in the area. The one of the Canton PD officers, and I don't remember which, but I think it was Good that testified, that they called him and were like, hey, can you help us take this casing out because he works on cars? It was not Higgins. It was not Proctor. It was a different Canton PD officer that works on vehicles.
swab taken, you mentioned, on direct
And this is
examination
common
of
that
taillight
Parts of
somewhere on
vehicles
house,
will come
correct?
out and be tested.
Yes, I took a swab from that taillight.
We saw
Where
it in Murdoch.
exactly
They tested the
Did you
whole
take that swab from?
I took it from the
casing.
outer exposed areas, which would have been on the outer side of the vehicle. So I did not take it from the internal, what would have been the internal portion of the taillight when it was intact.
They
Can you
should have
point
videotaped
with a
taking it
laser
out.
pointer exactly where you swabbed that taillight housing.
I don't know if they did, but they
Is
should
there a way
have.
that, can it get zoomed in just a little bit so I can differentiate the silver in the front? I'm having a little trouble.
They should have videotaped the removal. I don't know if they did.
Is that zoomed in enough, or do you need more?
I believe so. I can start. So I took it from the red area here that would have been exposed. And then if we could zoom in a little bit more just on this front area so I can differentiate between the internal structures and the external.
You guys will remember they pulled Murdaugh's car apart and took out the
Was it
whole
one swab?
Yes, that's correct.
seatbelt
So you swabbed
casing and all the rest
multiple
of it.
areas with one swab and then submitted that.
Yes.
So you don't know, as you sit here, where, if any DNA was detected, where that DNA may have come from,
No, that's correct.
other than the general housing altogether.
Yes. So that just to finish your previous question, I did.
Sorry, I didn't even.
That's okay. It was just I couldn't see it. So this area here, which would have been the external portion of the taillight. So the areas I did not swab were any areas that would have, when the taillight was intact, been
Been
protected
covered.
by the outer plastic housing of the taillight.
Is your testimony, Ms. Hartnett, that what you just pointed to was the exterior portion of the taillight, bottom left?
No, just this piece of plastic here is the exterior, the exterior piece of plastic.
And you swabbed that area as well as other areas on the exterior, like the red upper right.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. As you swab that, the DNA test does not differentiate where you swabbed, just that you swabbed, correct?
She swabbed the whole thing
Yes,
with
that's
one
correct.
swab.
That was all one swab, one collection.
One
Got it.
swab.
So we can't define whether the DNA was to the upper right, on the outside of the lens, or some other place that you.
No, it just comes from the
That's
tail
correct.
And of course, you're familiar with touch DNA, et cetera, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Touch an item, walk away, sweaty palms. Good likelihood I just left some DNA on this podium, correct?
Yes, you can transfer.
From the sweaty palms to the I just left some DNA on the podium to the shaft from before lunch, Alan, I am trying. Yeah, you are making it difficult, sir. But if y'all want to leave your DNA on the like button, you sure can.
Skin cells by touching an item.
I couldn't let it go.
We can take that down with the court's permission. Sure.
And no, Chad, in a
You
lot
also
of cases,
indicated that you
in a lot of cases, we will see them swab from one side, a separate swab from a different area. One swab for the entire thing is not what you normally see.
collected glass.
But I'm not a forensic
glass, from the rear bumper of Miss Reed's Lexus, correct?
Yes, I have it as a parent class, but yes.
As a parent glass, fair enough. You labeled that as item 3-3, and it was 5 pieces of glass labeled A through E, right? A, B, C, D, E. Is that
May I refer to my notes?
with the court's permission?
Yes. I'm just unfamiliar with the lettering A through E. I don't believe I have that in my notes. If you could refer to the document that you have.
Is it possible that, and this is just ignorance on my part, is it possible that once you submitted that for further testing, somebody else may have labeled those individual pieces A through E? You did not?
That's possible. I do not label them A through E.
Okay, got it. Understood. Thank you for that clarification. As a matter of fact, you labeled it as quantity 1, correct? On an evidence submission form?
In the LIMS system, that's correct. Each item is, that quantity value is only used for specific things. So when I submit something as one item, it doesn't matter how many pieces it actually is. It's just, I'm submitting it as one item.
So in other words, one group.
That's correct.
But it's, so we're clear, and I want to make sure that these numbers are crystal clear. In that group, under 3-3, there were 5 pieces of apparent glass that you recovered, correct?
I don't have the exact number in my notes, and honestly, it's difficult to tell from my picture, so I don't want to say that I saw 5 pieces of glass.
Did you not annotate that somewhere, that you recovered 5 pieces?
Again, I have a photograph of it, but it's difficult to see on this printed page, so I didn't specifically write 5 pieces anywhere.
Okay. Well, okay, then let me see if I can do it this way. Instead of pitching, let's catch. The person that you submitted it to would have.
He just said instead of pitching, let's catch, we're going to leave that alone. But what she's saying is I took a picture of the pieces of glass recovered from the bumper, but I didn't note how many there were. Wouldn't that be in the chain of custody? Because you need to know from the chain of custody how many pieces, particularly of glass, but it's the same with things like narcotics. You need to know if it is broken in transport. So if you're transporting one piece of glass and it gets broken when you're transporting it, and then you open the bag and have 2 pieces of glass, if you noted it, then you know. So it would have to be noted on, not have to be, it should be noted on the chain of custody sheets.
Annotated exactly what the grouping was that you submitted.
Put your glass in a group.
I'm the one that initially, after the item was sent to fingerprinting, then I examined the item, but I didn't write down exactly how many pieces of glass were present. I just took a photo.
And as you sit here, you don't recall necessarily how many pieces you took off that bumper.
Correct. And the quality of the photo does not allow me to see that at this point.
Okay, let's take a look at that photo. With the court's permission, this is exhibit 168. Can we show that, display that?
I did once have a defense attorney try to poke at the physical evidence and break it into smaller pieces.
And if we could, Mr. Bates, with the court's permission, you can zoom in.
Sir, no,
on
we
the
have
area.
pictures. Stop it.
It's bigger than that. Capture all of the documents. There you go. Zooming in at this point, and I would ask you, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize this photo? It's zoomed a little bit. Do you still recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Is that a photograph that you caused to be taken at the Sally Port on February 1st, 2022?
I believe it was February 2nd, right? Did we, or it's February 1st now?
February 1st,
We agreed it's February 1st. My apologies. Yes, on February 1st, I did request that photo be taken of the apparent pieces of glass.
Okay. And I know you can't see necessarily every piece. Can you use your laser pointer and point to a piece?
Sure.
Okay. Got it. So that's the largest of the pieces, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's correct that none of these pieces of apparent glass were embedded in the bumper. They weren't dug in, stuck into that hard plastic, correct?
No, I do not have that. I do not have that notation that they were embedded, just they were on the bumper.
As a matter of fact, they were physically perched on top of that hard plastic horizontal bumper, correct?
To my recollection, they were just sitting on the bumper, yes.
Okay. And do you know, just in your experience, and if we could leave this up for just a moment while I ask the next couple of questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
It doesn't
Do
make
you know
any
where
sense.
Dighton, Massachusetts is?
I know the general area.
How far would you say that is from Canton?
I don't know, maybe a half an hour. I'm not exactly sure.
Do your notes indicate that the vehicle was recovered from Dighton and towed back to Canton and placed in the Sally Port before you started your examination?
Yes.
So and you also had been apprised before you began your examination that the incident in question took place in Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you knew as you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination,
Yep.
the vehicle had to have been driven by definition from Canton to Dighton and then towed back from Dighton.
AJ, I'm going to let you finish, but the prosecution seems to believe that the glass on the bumper is from the glass that John O'Keefe carried out of the bar. But that means the glass was on the bumper when Karen Reed drove from 34 Fairview back to John O'Keefe's home in a blizzard. I know everybody quibbles with whether it's a blizzard or not, but it clearly was windy and snowing. Parked overnight, or for at least 4 or 5 hours, with more snow coming down on the vehicle. Did the snow hold it there? Is that the assumption, that the snow on the vehicle held the glass onto the vehicle? But then when it melted, wouldn't it wash off? But glass on the vehicle, drives from 34 Fairview to John O'Keefe's house, then leaves John O'Keefe's house to go drive around, then comes back. Hopefully we'll get the car log and be able to see where the car went. Then drove back from John O'Keefe's home to Karen Reed's parents' home and then was towed all the way back to Canton. Okay.
As you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination, the vehicle had to have been driven by definition from Canton to Dighton and then towed back from Dighton back to Canton.
It could have
correct?
frozen to the bumper.
I was informed that the car was recovered in Dighton.
And ultimately either driven back or towed back. One of the ways, some way it ended up back in Canton, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if Dighton is, how far would you say Dighton is from Canton?
Again, I'm really guessing. I would say maybe a half an hour.
30 miles?
Potentially. I don't know exactly. I was never in Dighton.
Okay, so according to your notes, the glass pieces that
I'm trying to
we're
move the
looking
closed
at on the
caption,
back of
sorry.
this bumper would have traveled, let's call it for round figures, about 60 miles in a blizzard before you saw it.
I mean,
I don't know when the glass pieces were ended up on the bumper, so I couldn't say.
right. I don't
And
know
of
when the
course,
glass
you
got
knew
onto the
that
bumper.
on February 1st, you knew a few days earlier, on the 29th, there had been a pretty significant snowstorm here in Massachusetts, correct?
Yes, I did have that information.
And that blizzard included high winds, freezing rain, snow, all the good stuff with a blizzard, correct?
I don't recall the exact weather conditions of the blizzard.
But irrespective, after all of that, whatever that was, you saw these 5 pieces just sitting perched on the top of the bumper, not embedded in any way, correct?
That's correct.
And you recovered those with little bitty tweezers, correct?
Yes.
We can take this down with the court's permission. You testified on direct examination that you also found a hair on that rear panel, the quarter panel of the car, correct?
Yes, at the time of the scene, I noted it was an apparent hair, correct.
And the apparent hair, and I'll try to use that same word, I keep forgetting, you'll correct me. That apparent hair was not sitting on the horizontal bumper, but on a vertical portion of the quarter panel, correct?
That's correct.
Did you find the hair, or was that hair pointed out to you by somebody else?
I believe I located the hair.
How exactly was that hair secured to that vertical panel, if you can explain that?
It didn't appear to be secured in any way. It was just on that quarter panel.
Okay, so it wasn't.
It was just
taped.
there.
No,
It wasn't glued.
no,
Wasn't stapled.
no.
It was not affixed in any way whatsoever. It was just perched
Frozen?
on that vertical panel
Stuck.
of the SUV, correct?
That's correct.
And for you to remove it, and by the way, you found this at the same time that you found the general time, that you found the glass pieces as well.
That's correct.
So that hair potentially would have had to make that same 60-mile round trip in the same blizzard.
At the time, I don't know when that hair was deposited on the vehicle.
Right. And it didn't take you much to remove that hair, correct?
I picked it up with a pair of tweezers.
It didn't give you any resistance.
Not that I recall.
Okay. I'd like to take a look at that hair if we can. I know you've seen it just a few minutes ago. I want to look at it one more time. With the court's permission, these are exhibits 165 and 173. If we could start with 165 and publish those.
Chat, all the questions you have are the questions I'm sure this jury has.
Does that look
How
like
did
a
it stay?
close-up view of, actually, is that Zoom? Yeah.
How did it stay on the car? Was it frozen to the car under the snow? But then when the snow melts, doesn't it melt and all go with
May I
it?
do this a different way?
All right.
This is actually, with the court's permission, okay, I'll get to that in just a second. I want to try to.
Yanetti's telling him to do something and he's like, no, I'm not there yet. No one identified the hair. It has been identified as human hair, but it's not been identified beyond that.
Can I approach briefly?
Yes.
Very briefly, could you take a look at those 4 photographs and tell me if you recognize the first 2 to be exhibits 165 and 173? They're not marked on there, but what you earlier looked at.
Okay.
Do those appear to be those 2 exhibits that you earlier saw?
Yes, I don't know what numbers they were, but I do remember seeing these photos earlier.
Fair enough. And then the second 2 photos, do those appear to be zoomed photos of the same 2 photographs?
Yes, they do.
With the court's permission, I would ask that the zoomed photos be marked as next in order.
Is there any objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Can I approach?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right, we're looking at what's previously been marked as 165. Does that appear to be a photo of the hair?
Would it be possible just to zoom in on that,
Absolutely.
the
This is not
sticker?
an eye contest.
This is not an eye contest. Thank you.
And just a little bit, I'm just trying to
Alan.
read the letter on the white marker.
Oh my God, the flash.
Yes, so that, correct.
So that hair looks, as we're
Also, if those are the scratches that they are talking about up above that, I mean, it looks like a car that bumped into a car. Am I crazy? If those are the swoopy scratches that they are talking about.
looking at it, you will agree that hair looks like a almost like a backward C, correct? In other words, it looks like it's more vertical than flat in that photograph, correct?
I would agree. It looks like a C on the side of the car.
If we could go to Exhibit 173. And this is the same hair photographed a second time, correct?
If we could, again, just zoom in on that sticker.
It could be. Some of you are saying it looks like the car was badly buffed. It could.
Yes,
that
that's
could
correct.
be. It's hard.
Ms. Hartnett, does it look to you like between the first and the second photographs, that hair has moved?
What?
It's no longer an inverted C, but a C.
No. It looks like a different angle.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I see the two ends, which may still be making contact with the vehicle. I can't make that determination based on this photo.
Fair enough. So that was sort of my next question. I'll just dovetail it this way. Did it appear to you that the hair, which is curled, was making contact with the vehicle on the top point?
Hold on. I'm going to back up without him talking. I want to look at the two pictures, the way he's saying, and then we'll zoom and catch back up. But I'm curious. That doesn't look, it looks like a different angle of the same thing to me. It doesn't look like the ends of the hair are touching and then they flip. It looks the same to me. It looks like, if anything, maybe it's curling up a little bit more, but it doesn't really. Yeah, they just look like a different angle of the same thing to me.
The hair, which is curled, was making contact with the vehicle on the top point and the bottom point.
I would say from this photo, I honestly can't tell if those two ends are coming off the vehicle or touching the vehicle. I just can't make that determination.
But you would agree that that hair was somewhat precariously perched on that vertical quarter panel, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Ask it differently.
We can, Mr. Bates, we'll finish with that. With the court's permission, we can take that down. If you take a look at the zoomed photos that have just been marked as 259 and 260 respectively, can you take a look at those side by side? And when you're finished, I'd like to ask you a question or two about those.
The thing is, the jury will get to decide.
Okay.
Does it look,
and they'll
from
get to see
your
all the
perspective,
pictures, and he'll get to
seeing
argue
those
it.
Photos side by side, that the hair appears to have gently moved, just a little bit?
Gently moved?
I just don't think I can make that determination. They're taken from different angles. I just don't know. I can see that they have a curl in both, but I don't know which ends are making contact or if the ends are coming off the vehicle.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I imagine on redirect, all he's going to say, did you take the hair off and put it back on? Because the angles are different, and the angles being different change things.
There's one more exhibit I'd like to take a quick look at and ask you a couple of questions about. With the court's permission,
the jury's going to have the
195,
photos to look at them closely.
Okay.
Alan just has to ask the questions. And if the jury's like, I am curious about that, it's something they'll get to look at in the jury room, because they'll get to see better versions of the photos than we get, because we're getting the photo that's put up onto the board or put up onto the screen with the light filtering in from the courtroom and then zoomed in on from the cameras. They will get a better
Yes, I do.
perspective of it
you
than
saw
us.
this just a few minutes ago on direct examination as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You indicated that you took two swabs
Much more
from
interested
the,
in this.
quote, area around damage, numbers 1 through 9 of the gray sweatshirt, end quote, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, can you describe for the jurors how you took those swabs, and were they of all 9 or a select number of the 9? How did you do that?
I moistened 2 cotton swabs with sterile water, and then I took those 2 swabs. May I use the pointer to just show?
Of course.
And I vigorously swabbed around.
Vigorously.
I don't know if it's working. There we go. This entire area. So every area of damage,
All
I
of them?
swabbed around all of it using the same 2 swabs. So it was one collection from all those areas.
What?
One collection on swab 1 and one collection on swab 2. You just repeated the process.
No, I took them exactly at the same time. So I held the 2 swabs together.
Oh.
And as I'm swabbing, I'm rotating the swabs to make sure that all the exterior of the swab is coming into contact with that material
What?
in order to collect equal samples, or at least attempt to collect equal samples on each swab.
Okay, we can take that. Thank you. And you indicated that this was the first time that you had done swabbing specifically for the purpose of trying to find either canine DNA or animal DNA.
That's correct.
Had you been trained at the time that you took the swabs, had you been trained or received any training or any teaching about the relationship between keratinized tissue and DNA?
No,
Do you know what keratinized tissue is?
no.
Why isn't it one swab for one evidence area? Like even in Murdaugh, it was like this swab goes with this marker and this swab goes with this marker and this swab goes with this marker. Not one swab for the whole fucking thing. Like puncture or hole or tear 1, swab 1. Area 2, swab 2. Area 3, swab 3. What? How is this proper?
Did you photograph exactly where any of those swabs were taken, or just notate it in your notes?
She swabbed the whole thing.
I notated in my notes. That overall photo is the photo that I used to describe the sample that I collected.
And I think it probably goes without saying, you didn't videotape your swabbing technique on that shirt either, correct?
That's correct.
You did include a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from T-shirt 717 and shirt 718, correct?
I performed a debris collection on each of those items. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
That is what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a note in your report that you had recovered some debris or you'd done some debris collection, correct?
That's correct.
And you indicated in your note that the debris was from shirt 717 and shirt 718. Is that right?
May I refer to my notes?
With the court's permission.
Thank you.
Oh, he's going to leave all of her training, I think, till the end. Or not give her a chance to explain it and argue it later.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and shirt 717 is which shirt?
The orange t-shirt.
And shirt 718 is which shirt?
The long sleeve gray shirt.
All right, so you took, is the right word scrapings?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, you took scrapings from both shirts, is that right?
Yes, correct.
And then combined those together and submitted that as the quote unquote debris
Combined
that was
them.
assigned a new item number 7-18.18, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So as you sit here, you don't know where the debris came from specifically other than the 2 shirts. Could be one, could be the other, could have been a combination of both.
Yes, that's correct.
Why? Why were they combined?
Did you describe in detail anywhere the actual debris that you found? Little fibers, little hairs, little pieces of green or blue or whatever?
If I was able to pick out a hair or a fiber, I would have attempted to do that from the debris collection. The debris collection was just anything that was left on the item that I was not able to pick off.
Okay, and you did not note any debris item that was plastic or plasticine, anything like that, correct?
No, I did not make any kind of observations on the debris itself.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered, correct?
That's correct.
And there was no photograph taken of the debris,
That's correct.
and there was no videotape of the debris collected.
Correct.
Okay. When you received item 717
Combined,
and
they
item
combined it.
718, that came in one evidence bag, did it not?
Yes, it did.
Your Honor, may I approach briefly? Yes.
I am just...
That's if you,
Yes, I do.
how do you recognize that?
This is the container that contained the it's a photo of the brown paper bag that contained the long sleeve gray shirt as well as the orange t-shirt.
May I approach, Your Honor?
So they were stored together.
If I could ask that be marked as next in order.
Any objections to Mallory?
No, Your Honor.
They may have come that way from the hospital, to be fair. Who recovered the shirt and sweatshirt from the hospital and transported them? Like, where were they?
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. This evidence bag notes, let me start over. This evidence bag is in the condition that it was in when you received it, meaning the writing on the bag was already there when you received it.
Yes, that's correct.
And it notes that it was, these items of evidence were collected by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the date of collection was January 29, 2022, is that right?
I'd have to relook at that
Of course.
for the date.
May I approach?
Yes.
Yes, I
May I
didn't,
display
So you got an answer.
my
Right, I think-
apologies.
my mistake.
The date on there is January 29th, 2022.
My hair stuck on my hat.
So I don't have to walk back and forth, may I display
Yes.
this?
So Proctor collected the
Okay.
clothing.
Does that look like what you're looking at, exhibit 261?
That's correct.
Thank you. Let's see if I can stand out of the way. You see Trooper
Collected by
Proctor's
Proctor,
name
Good
on
Samaritan.
the evidence bag as the person that collected it.
Yes, that's correct.
And it also has a description of what's in the bag, and it shows both the orange t-shirt and the gray sweatshirt collected together and bagged together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the date, again, once again.
And that's
on the
not her
upper
fault.
right
That's Trooper Proctor's
is January
doing.
29, 2022, correct?
Yes, that's,
What in the world?
You have no way of knowing, as you sit here, the journey that those two items of evidence took before they got to you in your lab, correct?
Nope.
yes, they're tracked as soon as they're entered into our laboratory system by us.
I didn't hear any of that. I'm so
My
sorry.
apologies. The item would be tracked as soon as it's submitted to our lab by us, by the crime lab.
Thank you. We can take this down, Your Honor. Thank you. The debris that you ultimately got from the shirt or shirts, you don't know if that debris may have been in the bag and the shirts picked up the debris in the bag or otherwise, correct?
Correct.
Because they were housed together,
Yes,
stored together.
that's correct.
Were you aware before you began your analysis on either one of those shirts that those shirts had been found at the bottom of an ambulance, on the floor of an ambulance at one point?
I don't have any knowledge of where the clothing, what condition the clothing in was before I got it.
Okay, and that probably answers my next question, but just for the record, you don't have any knowledge personally as you sit here that either one of the shirts or both of them were on the floor of a hospital.
She's like, no idea.
As well.
I have no information about where the shirts were.
One of the
No
things
idea.
that you did indicate was, in your direct examination, was how important it is to maintain sanitary conditions with evidence to avoid contamination, correct?
That's correct.
For instance, you wouldn't want to take the swabs that you so carefully utilized to swab an item of evidence and then, oops, drop it on the floor. You would have to discard that item and then start over, correct?
Uh-huh.
If a swab is dropped on the floor, we don't discard it. We would preserve it, but that would be a note that we would have to put in our file, and that, yes, that swab would not be tested any further.
Right, because of the possibility of cross-contamination.
Right.
Correct.
And at least according to the evidence bag, those two shirts were in the custody and control of which trooper before you got them?
Trooper Proctor collected the evidence according to the bag.
Thank you. Ultimately, Ms. Hartnett, every single piece of taillight material and clothing that you've described in your testimony today on direct and cross-examination, all of that evidence was presented to you or to the lab at one time in one bundle on March 14th, 2022, correct?
No, that's incorrect.
Which portion was in the lab before March 14th?
The tail light that I collected from the vehicle was submitted prior to that, as well as any other items that I took from the vehicle.
Okay, that was a great answer and my mistake. I knew that and I forgot it. So the taillight housing you took on the 1st?
Correct.
Okay. Every other item other than the taillight housing itself, which you took personal
No,
possession
the
of,
swabs. No.
all the taillight fragments, all the clothing,
No.
orange shirt, gray shirt, jeans, shoes, everything
Swabs from the car.
was all submitted in one fell swoop on March 14th, 2022. Is that right?
No.
What else am I incorrect about?
So I just wanted to clear anything that was collected from the vehicle, as well as the swabs from the red Solo cups and the drinking glass that I was presented with at Canton PD, was submitted by me on February 1st. The other items, the clothing items, were submitted together. And then there was another submission that had the fingernails and the known blood standards. So there were several submissions. So I'm hesitant to lump it all into one because it did happen on different dates.
Okay, fair enough. Can we agree that the earliest submission, with the exception of the stuff that you actually took with you from the Sally,
And she's not wrong to be
the taillight
precise.
material, whatever
He
swabs-
knows that
I'm sorry,
he's
the,
not
the taillight
right.
housing and whatever swabs you took, all of the other material that was submitted to the lab, all of the other evidence, the earliest date anything was submitted was March 14th, 2022.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to take another look at my submission forms just to clarify.
May I approach?
Yes.
I think I have it. It's a two-page document, if I can show Mr. Lally. Okay. If you could familiarize yourself with that for just a quick second.
Yes.
She's looking at the report to refresh her recollection on the dates.
Okay, may I approach one more time, Your Honor? Tracking along. I have one more document I'm going to ask.
Yes.
What is that document, the second document that I just handed you?
This is a printed chain of custody report from our
Oh,
laboratory
there it
information
is.
management system.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to mark the first document's name again. I want to get it right.
It's the evidence submission form for submission 7.
Evidence submission form for submission 7.
I rarely see the defense having to admit the chain of custody log. Normally that comes in with the case in chief.
A two-page document, if I can have that next in order. And then the
Chain of custody. My apologies.
Is there an objection, Mr. Lally?
Yes, to both.
So the objection sustained unless you want to convince me otherwise.
I'll have a mark for ID
Okay.
for the time being. That's fine. If that's okay with the court.
Yes.
Yeah, I've only seen these with the lead investigator who did the chain of custody. Because right now those documents have a whole bunch of hearsay on them. I've never seen the defense submit them. What is happening? But they can refresh your recollection, and that's fine.
I think it'll help with this. Go a lot faster with those. I was gonna
You've got a lot of your Post-its on the other one. Do you want to take it off?
actually ask with I think it'll help with this.
Okay.
Go a lot faster with those Post-its
The
on.
witness, I guess. Go back to the witness with those, please.
If you could take a look at what's been marked as VV, that's the log. I just want to go through this relatively quickly. With regard to plastic pieces that were submitted, if you look on for instance, page 11.
Lally objected, just to be clear, chat, Lally objected to the chain of custody documents. Right now, they are hearsay. We have not had those witnesses in yet, so we will see.
Where a tab is.
Yep.
Normally, you
That
go
shows
through it
that
with the
piece was
witness.
submitted on March 14th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And there was a piece submitted on March 14th notated on page 12.
What item are you referring to?
It's a plastic piece.
Yes, correct.
Page 13, another plastic piece.
Yes, submitted on March 14th.
And page 14, another plastic piece.
Yes, that's correct.
Page 15, another plastic piece.
Oh, I see where he's going with this.
Correct.
And page 17.
Do you want me to tell you? Chat, let me know if you want me to tell you. I can wait.
Sorry. Yes, that's correct.
And then if you turn to the next page, page 18, that's the orange t-shirt that shows its submission date, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what's that date?
March 14th.
And then on the bottom, very bottom of page 20, going into page 21, there's another item, the gray t-shirt or gray sweatshirt.
Yes, that was also submitted on March 14th.
Okay.
So what's submitted on March 14th, essentially, as they're going through this, are the pieces of taillight and the victim's clothes. So if they are all submitted together, the question is, were they separated or was there cross-contamination? Because the prosecution argues that there are pieces, we haven't seen this in evidence yet, it was in their opening statement, that there are pieces of taillight on John O'Keefe's clothes. But if there's pieces of taillight on John O'Keefe's clothes and it's all transported together and submitted to the lab on the same day, could there be cross-contamination of the clothes? How were they submitted? So that's going to be interesting to hear if they were lumped together or not. So we will see, but that's where he's going with these were all submitted to the lab. He keeps saying lumped together. Were they in the same bag? Were they in different bags? We're going to hopefully find out. She should have pictures of how everything was received and then pictures of her opening them and then pictures of her taking them out. There should be photos of all of this, but we haven't seen them yet on her direct examination.
Thank you.
But there should be pictures of all of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
For identification.
I'm not sure if I'm going to use it one more time.
Put them up on the bench and you can grab them.
Of course, man.
Yes.
And for those of you asking why wait so long to submit it all for testing, it's a great question.
Ms. Hartnett, before you received all of the items that we've talked about and all the items that you've testified about, with the exception of the items that you physically took with you from the Sally Port, everything else that you've testified to was submitted to you on March 14th or after, correct?
That's correct.
And all submitted by Trooper Proctor, correct?
I know they were all submitted by the Norfolk County Detective Unit. I don't know the specific officer that necessarily dropped them off at the lab.
Can you answer the question based on the log information that you have and the chain of custody that's in front of you? Can you answer the question whether Trooper Proctor or anybody else stored the taillight lens material and the clothing in the same place or in the same bag before you received it?
Right.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that question one more time?
Based on the log information that you have, in other words, the chain of custody that's in front of you, that you can absolutely look at and determine where things were and who had them, can you tell us whether or not Trooper Proctor or anybody else stored any of the taillight material and the clothing in the same place or even in the same bag?
No, I don't have any information to how the evidence was treated before it was received in the lab.
In fact, that's
How did you
because there
receive it?
is no chain of custody for that data. I'm sorry, for those items. There's no data for those items predating March 14th, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You don't personally have any chain of custody information about those items we just went over predating March 14th, do you?
I personally do not have any data that would indicate where those items of evidence were prior to them being accepted into the lab.
And that's
one
not
of
on
the
her.
reasons why you have such detail.
Where are the photos of how you received it? Because I'm beginning to wonder, she received the clothes. Did someone else receive the plastic? And if someone else received the plastic, they would have been in separate containers, but we don't know that yet. And the prosecution should have put it in her direct evidence, her direct testimony, because the prosecution has to know this is where the defense is going with this. They have to.
Detailed chain of custody protocols is to maintain control over where items go
Yes.
and how they're handled and by
Yes.
whom, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you.
She doesn't know that because until they get to her, she doesn't know what happens to them.
I have nothing further at this time.
Okay, anything, Mr. Lally?
Notice he didn't ask her to see any pictures of how she received the evidence, which leads me to suspect that that argument is maybe not supported by the evidence. Because if they all were in one bag, she would have had to photograph it and take the clothes out, and there would be photos of that. So I've got questions. Lally, are there photos? And where are they?
Just a couple.
Just answer the question. If the defense is reaching, I want to know. If they're not, I want to know. Either way, I want to know.
Now, the vehicle that you observed, the defendant's vehicle in the Sally Port of the Canton Police Station, that was in generally overall good condition, other than the areas of damage that you noted on the right rear, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And when you were swabbing, the swabs that you took from the taillight housing that you then later submitted to DNA, that was a taillight housing that you took from the Canton Police Station, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You logged that into the lab?
Yes, I did.
You took those swabbings and then you packaged them and you sent them to the DNA, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And all of those
David, I
swabbings
hope
were
that's
taken
not
from
true.
the exterior area of that taillight assembly, is that correct?
Yes.
The objection sustained is to the form.
With regard to those swabbings that you took from the taillight housing, where on the taillight housing did you take them?
All over?
I
the
took them from
exterior.
what would have been the exposed area of the taillight, should the taillight have been intact. So I did not collect from any of the interior portions of the taillight that would have been protected by the exterior plastic piece.
That's not
Now,
what we
at
have
the time
questions about,
that you
Lally.
were looking at the vehicle in the Sally Port of Canton Police Station, do you recall what the temperature was inside the garage?
No, I don't have that information.
Was the temperature the same inside the garage as it was outside of the garage? If you know, was it heated at all?
I don't know if it was heated.
OMG, it's damn it.
As
Dino.
far as the vehicle itself
Scotty
was
doesn't
concerned,
know.
when you saw it in the
Scotty doesn't
garage, did you see any sort of frozen snow or
Scotty
ice or
doesn't
anything
know.
like that on the exterior of the vehicle?
Scotty.
Not to my recollection, no.
That's going to be my new karaoke song. I'm going to just start singing Scotty Doesn't Know.
I have nothing further on.
And that limited bit,
One follow-up question.
Did you hear the judge? She's like, really? Me summarizing. Recross.
yes.
Miguelina, I wouldn't even pin recross. They're going to get to a new witness soon. I'm actually surprised they're going to get to a new witness this afternoon. Truly,
Take
we've got about
one
an
more
hour
look
left.
at that, what's been marked for identification as you. That's the evidence submission form, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Who signed that form?
Objection.
So the objection sustained unless you want to see me at sidebar.
I'll ask it a different way. Whose name is on the bottom of the form?
Objection.
It's the same question.
No, it's not.
Do you want to come up? Do you want to come up to sidebar?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I have that, please, Ms. Hartnett?
This is probably not the right witness for what he's trying to do. Excuse me, which is the issue. My nose is just dripping. Because it's been dry and now I'm at home and it's not dry.
You are unmuted.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that, I have no further questions.
All right. All right, Ms.
It's not the
Hartnett,
right
you are
witness
all
for
set.
this.
Thank you.
And the reason the judge was upset about the recross is because
All
the
right, your
redirect
next witness, Mr.
was so
Lally.
limited.
Yes, Your Honor. Call Ms. Ashley Valier to the stand.
I want to know where the pictures are too. We saw all of them in Murdaugh, didn't we? Every single photo. This is how I received the evidence. This is how I unsealed the bag. This is what I took out of it. This is the condition it was in. This is what it looked like before I took the debris off. This is what I looked like after I took the debris off. Every single step of the process had photos. That is what is common in cases that I've covered and done myself. This is odd.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence given in the court and
Ooh,
judgment
I
is
love the
that
hair
the
though.
whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
So witness.
So, Mr.
what are we
Lally,
on?
would you
52,
remove the, good afternoon.
53?
Would you remove the exhibit that's on the witness stand,
Yes, Your Honor.
please?
I'm sorry that I'm coughing. It is just my throat. Ashley, I dig your hair. I can't speak for all of chat, but I dig your hair.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
My name is Ashley Valier, spelled Vallier.
And Ms. Valier, what do you do for work?
I'm a forensic scientist at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
All right, so Mix Valier, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up.
Okay.
What we've been
Just
doing is
fine.
we've had to turn the air conditioning off when we can't hear you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Mr.
And
Lally.
how long have you been employed at the State Police Crime?
Just over 5 years.
And if I could ask you just a little bit about your educational background, starting with your undergraduate work, where did you go to school for that?
To 1.25.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry and cell biology from University of California, San Diego.
Yay, UC San
And
Diego.
following your receipt of that degree, where did you go from there?
We're at 1.25
I have a Master of
speed.
Science degree in biomedical forensic sciences from Boston University.
And once you received that master's, where did you go to work after that?
I worked at the Broad Institute for about 6 months before getting a job at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
As far as your work at the Broad Institute, that's located in Cambridge, is that correct?
Correct.
And what type of work did you
I'm
do?
fixing my notes
Broad
for a
Institute?
minute. That's why I'm looking down.
I worked for the Center for the Development of Therapeutics Department, doing quality control checks on compounds that they
Medical.
think could have potential to be therapeutic drugs.
And so you went to work for the Mass State Police Crime Lab, or the MSPCL, in early 2019, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you first went to work for the MSPCL, what unit were you initially assigned to?
The Trace Arson and Explosives Unit.
Is that the unit that you still currently work in?
It is.
And so you started with the lab as a forensic scientist. one, is that correct?
Explosives.
Correct.
And so what sort of steps or what kind of training did you go through in order to go from being a forensic scientist 1 to being a forensic scientist 2 that you are now?
A forensic scientist 1 is the initial job that you're hired as. After you've been at the lab for a year and once you're qualified and signed off to do casework, you become a forensic scientist 2.
Now, within the trace unit, can you describe to the jury sort of what types of things you're looking at, or what types of analysis that you do with regard to working in the trace unit specifically?
What I do or what the unit does?
First, as far as in general terms, what is a unit?
The unit has a lot of disciplines. So there's fire debris examination, explosives examination, serial number restoration, gunshot residue analysis, fibers, paint, glass, physical match, trace recovery.
Like what?
And
What?
specific to yourself, what is it that you do within the trace?
Why?
I do gunshot
Oh,
residue analysis, trace recovery, and physical match analysis.
Physical match analysis is why we're here from the trace unit, because the trace unit dealt with the glass.
And as far as each of those respective categories, is those the things that you've done essentially your
The
time
trace
there,
unit is
especially
dealing
the
with
forensic scientist
match.
too?
Match is
Yes.
going to be the glass.
Now, with regard to
I did yell
As far as
explosives, and then my nose needed to
physical
explode,
match
so I
component
had
that you were
to.
talking about,
I had to blow my
can you
nose.
explain to the jury, just again in general terms, sort of what goes into that, or what are you looking at, what are you doing in regard to your analysis with that?
Physical match analysis is looking at 2 or more items that have broken or irregular edges and seeing if they fit together like a sort of like a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, and she probably matched the car,
And when
the
you're doing those examination of various items, with
broken
respect to that,
taillight too.
what types of instruments are you using, or what types of ways are you looking at these from an instrumental perspective?
It's mostly the stereo zoom microscope, which is a microscope that's mounted on a stand so that it can look at larger objects and not just slides like in science class.
Now, over the course of your work with the lab, you're familiar with the lab is accredited, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's accredited by an organization known as ANAB.
Correct.
And with respect to that accreditation, what if any testing or what if any examinations or continuing education do you have to undergo in order for that accreditation, either for yourself or for the lab itself?
As part of the accreditation, analysts that are signed up to do casework do proficiency tests every year.
And have you done
Also,
proficiency testing over the course
Anyone
of your 5 years
surprised
of the lab?
Alan
I
didn't
have.
ask more about the
And,
proficiency
specifically,
testing
what
of the
types
last
areas have you
witness?
taken proficiency testing in?
I think he's leaving it
I've
for
taken proficiency
argument.
tests in gunshot
But
residue analysis and physical match cases.
I was
So with
so
respect to
surprised.
sort of each of the various areas of work that you do within the lab, is that correct?
Except for trace recovery, but yes.
And with respect to each of those, as far as the proficiency testing was concerned, you successfully completed each of those?
I have.
Now, if I could turn your attention to, at some point over the course of your work within the trace unit in the lab, did you become involved with the lab case number 22-02184?
I did.
And there's a name that's associated with that lab number as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
A name?
A name as far as a suspect or a defendant or something like that?
Yes.
And whose name is that?
Karen Reed.
And as far as your work within the trace unit, how is it that you came to be involved, or what piece of analysis did you become initially involved in with respect to Ms. Reed's case?
I was assigned to do a physical match analysis on, well, many different items.
Before
Many
we get
different
to
items.
the physical match, was there something, what if anything were you asked to do with regard to
A
some
tail
clothing
light.
items associated with the John O'Keefe?
Clothing?
I believe I later received debris that was collected from those clothing items.
And so debris specifically, do you recall which clothing items you received debris from?
I do not without looking at my notes.
Your Honor, with court's permission, may the witness look at her notes?
Yes, go right ahead.
So it was, well, I didn't look at clothing. I just received the debris that was already packaged. So it was labeled as coming from jeans, boxer shorts, sneakers, a gray long sleeve shirt, and an orange t-shirt.
They put the debris from the sneakers with all the clothes debris? Come on.
Now, with respect to each of those items had a lab sort of label number associated with it, is that correct?
Correct.
And is it your understanding that the larger piece of clothing would have been labeled 7- something, and then the debris from that clothing would have been labeled 7- same thing, point, whatever? Does that sound
Dash
familiar?
whatever.
It does, yes.
Sure,
And so
Lally.
with a specific reference to item 7-18.18.
Dash
That
whatever.
was debris from an orange t-shirt, is that correct?
Yes,
And specifically, I'm sorry, debris from an orange t-shirt and a gray long
Hey,
sleeve
George.
shirt, correct?
correct.
And from your analysis of that debris, what if any examination did you do of that debris that was provided to you within the trace?
So each of these items was packaged in a fold.
Separately?
So I opened up the fold and looked at the items under the stereo zoom microscope and documented it with photos.
And as far as that item, 7-18.18, what, if anything, did you observe as far as contained within the debris
Oh,
from that item
those sound
specifically?
separate.
May I look at my notes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
For those of you asking, I have her sped up. So we are Ashley is zoomed to 1.25.
There was apparent dirt debris, many black, gray, blue, and orange apparent fibers, several pieces of red apparent plastic, several apparent hairs, one piece of green material, and one piece of clear apparent plastic.
And the clear apparent plastic, what, if any, measurements did you conduct with reference to that?
It measured approximately 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 an inch of an inch.
But the last witness said
Now,
they would have.
from your analysis of those items, what, if anything,
My chair just did something weird. But the last witness said they would have picked out any items. So now I'm very confused because I think we're missing a witness. And the last witness testified only to debris from the shirt and pants. But now we also have debris from the shoes. I don't know if that was collected from the last witness or from a different witness, if it was all together, not all together. I am incredibly confused at this point about what was separate, what was not separate. Because the last witness said if I could see any hair, any plastic, any of that, we would have picked it out. So I don't know if there were multiple crime techs that submitted debris or not. Okay.
do you know where within the lab
Okay.
they went following your analysis there?
It might be that witnesses are out
I believe
of order.
another analyst in the trace unit then looked at those items.
Yeah, it might be.
And that would be are you familiar with another person who works in the trace unit named Christina Hanley?
I am.
And so what, if any, training does Ms. Hanley have that you do not have in order to conduct that sort of further analysis?
So Christina Hanley is the trace supervisor, and she is signed off to do casework in fibers, miscellaneous paint, glass. I see the other trace disciplines that I'm not.
So essentially those items contained within that debris were something that you examined.
So this witness is not qualified in some of the things in debris. Why are we calling this witness? I mean, I love the hair. I'm living for the hair. But if this witness is just here to do the physical match, why are we asking the witness about the debris? Let's just do that with the next witness if this witness isn't the one who tested it.
Microscopically made observations of, took measurements, and then they went to Ms. Hanley.
Correct.
Now, with respect to, you mentioned a variety of plastic items that you examined, correct?
The initial items that I looked at?
Yes.
Yes.
And what were those, generally speaking, what were those initial items that you looked at?
There were many different items containing that I believe were recovered from an address, but I would have to look at my notes to.
Go ahead.
So they were all labeled as recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
And what types of items were they specifically that you had observed?
So it was many pieces of apparent plastic and apparent glass and one drinking straw.
And those items were
And a
generally labeled
straw.
as items 7-5 through 7-19. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
And with reference to the process in general terms of when you receive these items, can you explain to the jury sort of your process and what you did and what you looked at as you went through each of these respective items?
Sure. So for beginning a physical match case, you always look at the questioned items first, which are the ones that you don't know where it came from. Like here, they're labeled as coming from the road, so you don't know where their actual source of origin is.
Right, that makes sense.
And so what we'll do is we'll scan that item into my custody. And then I will document the packaging with photographs. And then I'll open that item and then document that item as it is. And if there are multiple pieces, each piece will get a designator like piece A, piece B, piece C. All this gets documented, written down in my notes and in photographs. If any of those pieces look like they could possibly fit together, then I will look under the stereo zoom and see if they do in fact fit together, and document it if they do. And then once I've finished documenting that, I'll repackage it in the original packaging. And then if there are multiple items, like in this case there were, then once that first item is sealed up, then I'll clean my bench and then I'll open the second item and do the same thing until all of the items have been documented.
I also am sped up to 1.25.
Again, if you could describe to the jury sort of the physical process.
We are sped up,
what you did in this
which
case.
can change
With
the way
respect
a
to these
witness
items, as
sounds
far
on the
as how were
stand.
you looking at them, sort of.
This is why I
what
keep
did you do
noting.
with those items?
So like I said, I opened up each of these items individually, took photos, took notes, looked at them under the stereo zoom microscope, and then looked at my photos after I had looked at all of them. They'd all been packaged in their original packaging. And I looked at the photograph to see if any of those pieces could possibly fit together. And then once I looked at the photos and saw that it looked like there were possible physical match fits among those questioned items,
This
then I opened
witness
up
is only here for
those
physical
items
match.
and looked to see if they, like in real life
Match.
versus just on photos, see if they could have a potential physical match. And then if it looked like it did, then I brought them together and looked at that in the stereo zoom to confirm if there was
love
a physical match.
That part of this witness's job is to puzzle piece together things. Like explosives
approach?
and puzzle pieces. I'm ready for it. Let's see what happens. Chat, some of the frustration you're feeling is because the lead investigator hasn't testified yet. I think the prosecution's trying to avoid that at all costs. But because the lead investigator has not testified yet, we don't have any of this information.
Series of 9 photographs. Let's ask you to look at those until we finish.
So, reviewing photos. Can't wait to see those. I'll slow this back down when we get there.
Do you recognize those?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Item 7-5.
And is that how it was presented to you or shown to you as far as the evidence bag that you opened and the items that were contained within?
I mean, this is just a picture of the seal, not the entire bag, but yes.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibits.
No objection.
Hello, George. You tell that squirrel. Yeah. You tell that squirrel, George. You tell them. Mm-hmm. George is having a moment. The court reporter, the judge looks like she is dying inside as the court reporter marks the evidence. Again, pre-marked evidence was within your reach. But no.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photographs to the jury, please?
Okay.
Silver Mom asked why was Proctor not the first to testify after the civilian witnesses?
And Ms. Tillman, if
Probably
I can
because there's a
have
lot of
photograph
problems with
1905.
Proctor. Probably because there's a lot of problems with
Where
Proctor.
what's up on the screen is photograph 1905. which
Look,
has now been marked as
signatures.
Do you recognize that?
So
I do.
helpful.
And is that the evidence back that you were presented with regard to items labeled as 7-5?
Notice we didn't see this with the last witness, which raises a lot of questions for me.
That's the seal on it, yes.
Now, just in general terms, as far as this process that you're talking about, sort of fitting the puzzle pieces together, how long and how laborious a
Broken
process
red
did
plastic.
that entail?
2/4/2020.
In this case specifically,
Yes.
there were many items to look at, so it did take quite a bit of time.
And if I could have photograph 1908.
I bet we're going to see a lot of broken red plastic. Oh, there it is.
And do you recognize what's up on the screen, which has now been marked as Exhibit 263?
I do.
Is that one of the pieces that you had from item 7-5?
Those are the 3 pieces in item 7-5.
And so the 3 pieces from that were all red apparent plastic pieces from that same item. Is that correct? May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you another 7 photographs. If you can take a look at those. And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The seal and then the items from item 7-6.
And what's contained in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed when you were doing your analysis in the lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, Commonwealth seeks
Can we
to
just see them?
introduce the next exhibits. No objection.
Okay. Are we going to see them?
271 through 277.
Thank you. Question to the jury at this time.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1921.
The question from the chat, Artista Lulu said, is it typical to be reviewing forensic evidence dated years after the incident? The evidence was collected at the time, it seems, but the review wasn't till later. It does happen. It's not ideal, but it does happen. There's so much in this case, though, that it...
So
can be
What's up on the
frustrating.
screen, as that's photograph 1921, exhibit 271. That is the evidence
Zelda
that
Kitty said, will the defense call proctor if the prosecution doesn't? Yep, if they can. And they should be able to. It's going to be an issue.
Correct.
And with reference to that, as far as the labeling is concerned, these are items that were submitted by the state police, correct? As far as you know.
Yes.
And from the
Pieces of clear
labeling
plastic.
that's exhibited in labeling that's being shown in Exhibit 271, that actually has an indication of who the submitting agency is and the date that the item was collected, correct?
Presumably, I don't know because that's not our lab's labeling system.
Mustang Mama asks, why do you have to ask permission to approach the witness?
As far as your observation, of
Most
these evidence bags,
courts
we're
have that
opening
rule.
them,
You can't
boxes,
just
we're opening them.
walk around.
They
You
have different dates on them.
have to ask
Some
the
of them,
court
is
to
that correct?
approach. It is
I
part
don't
of local
know.
rules. It's also
I don't
part of
know.
courtroom
Ms. Gilman, if I could have a photograph.
common
of
courtesy.
1924.
You can't just go stomping up to a witness on the stand.
And again, what's up?
What is happening? There we go. Pieces of
What's up on the
plastic.
screen that's now been marked as Exhibit 272.
Where did those
These
come
were
from?
the items that were marked within that box or that bag of item 7-6. Is that correct?
Correct.
Large pieces of plastic.
Pieces of clear plastic, correct?
Apparent plastic, yes.
Also this. Pepsi Man said, so the bailiff doesn't tackle you. Also that. This judge made it very clear before this started that they would have to ask to approach everything,
Another series of photographs.
even if it's just to put evidence up. I'm gonna zoom past all of the walking back and forth to show pictures. It's needed. It's time consuming. Yes, for all of you referring back to the Murdaugh case, like the Murdaugh case where the attorneys were just wandering all over the courtroom all the time.
And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs, ma'am?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The item 7-8.
And again, fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in the lab with reference to item 7-8.
Yes.
Come up and seek to introduce them.
The only problem with my notebook is it doesn't come with spell check and neither does my brain. For those of you asking, is the judge still awake? Yes. Is the jury still awake? I don't know. These are foundational questions that are kind of slow to get through until this witness starts piecing them together, because that's the part we're interested in, right? We know this witness does the physical matching, the puzzle piecing of it all, and we want to just get to that point. But we're not there yet. The judge looks like she is dying inside.
It's 278 and 292 be marked. Thank you.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photos to the jury as well? Ms. Valier, with regard to the items that were contained within these variety of bags and boxes that you had received as evidentiary items, what, if any, difference was there between sort of color, the size, the shape of the different items that you received?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Were they all
It's not
sort
your
of uniform
fault.
as
It's
to
his
their color,
questions.
as to their size, as to their shape, or what, if any, differences did you note between?
Lally, there are clearly pieces of red plastic and clear plastic. Just ask if they received different colors of plastic. Good God.
Between the items that we've already published, or just all of them?
All of them in general.
So some of the pieces were clear apparent plastic, some were clear apparent glass, some of them were red apparent plastic, some of them were silver colored apparent plastic.
And as far as the size of these pieces of plastic or glass,
Nashay, I was trying to pull this up. I don't know why it's taken so long to get to these witnesses.
How would you describe sort of their physical size, shape?
I don't know.
Some of them were very small, and some of them were larger. I can't tell you the dimensions without looking at my notes.
Yes.
And you took measurements with respect to each of the pieces that you analyzed, each of the pieces that you examined, and each of the pieces that you ultimately tried to find a match for, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1931. And what's up on the screen is now marked as Exhibit 278.
And also, Lally's asking questions that are very hard to answer. What's the difference between the plastic? They're different colors. Like what? And that is why the witness is confused.
Now, what's contained in this exhibit up on the screen, number 279, do you recognize that as the contents that were collectively?
And those are all mixed together.
Item 7-8.
I do.
And so from a variety of those different pieces that are depicted up on the screen in exhibits 279, each of them would have been respectively labeled as far as, say, 7-8.4 or
is that the
7-8 point something else.
This is very hard to see, but it looks like, and my mouse pointer does not show up well, but it looks like up above the ruler that there's a large round piece of plastic, like a circular piece to the side. And then the red piece, I can only see the reflection on the bottoms, but I couldn't tell if it was like a water stain or what, but that's a really unclear photo. But to the left of the photo, it looks like there is a round glass or plastic piece. That's so odd.
So the laboratory numbering system where it goes 7-8.1, that's if you take like a subsample. So if I had collected like debris or something out of this item, that would then be labeled 7-8.1 because it's a new entry in our limb system. These are just the different pieces in 7-8. In my notes, I gave them labels such as piece A, piece B, piece C, all the way down to, however many there were.
You labeled them individually as sort of letters, is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1938. And if we could zoom just a little bit in on that.
Oh, there we go. Oh, thank you.
The next layer.
Thank you for
up on the screen within.
Thank you for taking the picture of this piece with a black background so we could actually see the piece. That's so helpful. But where the fuck did that come from?
This exhibit of 282, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that one of the pieces that was submitted within this as far as 7-8 that you examined throughout the course of your analysis here, correct?
It was. There's actually two pieces in that. There's the large one in the middle, and there's a very small one up in the corner.
Okay. WTF is that, and where does it come from? Like, that looks like plastic. The shape is inconsistent with all of the other plastic we've seen. That's just odd. Like, what is it? Maybe we'll find out. All right, we're going to zoom from the sidebar. Oh, the jury's going out? I guess the jury's going out. Everybody's standing. Okay. This is why we have the ability to zoom. It doesn't seem like it's from the taillight, but we don't know what it is yet. No idea. Hopefully we will find out. So. But the jury's out. So I'm interested to see what gets put on the record. Yannetti is not at council table. I wonder if they're going to put anything on the record or not put anything on the record. It seems like they don't intend to put anything on the record. All right. Well, the judge is still sitting there, so they could put things on the record. All right. We're going to zoom. Oh, Lally is pre-marking all of those photos or something. I mean, they're in open court, but they're not on the record because the jury's out. Okay. The witness is coming back in. The jury is coming back. Lally is still flipping through photos. Jury's back in.
May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I guess I hope we'll find out what that is. The witness is reviewing the photos.
You reckon?
7-10.
Ma'am,
Oh, okay.
do you recognize those, ma'am?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
Photos that I took of item 7-10.
May I approach?
And now we're back to item 7-10. I don't know what happened to 7-9.
And again, Your Honor, with court's permission, if I could publish that to.
Yeah, those all should have been marked over lunch, but lunch was short. So I don't know if Lally would have had time. To be generous to Lally, I don't know if he would have had time.
And Ms. Valier, what's depicted up on the screen is that the bag of box.
Yeah, I also had this witness sped up
Yes.
at the beginning, so it definitely changes the tenor of how someone testifies, which is why I always note that I've done that.
And what's up on the screen is that the item that was contained within that evidence.
Yes.
Can I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Wait, we never got back to that large round piece. Lally! I wonder what happened at sidebar.
Do those until we're finished.
Caitlin Johnson said, it is suspicious that we haven't heard from whoever collected the evidence, who collected the debris, how was that handled? Some of the debris was collected by the last witness, but we don't know who collected the debris from the shoes because the last witness did not testify that they took any debris from the shoes. Bruce West in the chat said, remember a prior officer testified that he did not know how to use evidence tape. That was from Canton. And yes, talked about not using evidence tape to seal evidence bags. That was wild.
And Ms. Valier, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
The packaging that item 7-9 and 7-19 came in.
And what's contained within those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of those items when you received them at your station and within the trace unit?
It is.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Almost seek to introduce and admit as the next.
Yeah, David, I'm surprised we didn't see the pictures of the others.
The stenographer is marking.
I think there probably are chain of custody issues. And it's gotten very convoluted. Jessica, I imagine we will see some expert testimony regarding dogs at some point in this case. One would hope. I feel bad the jury doesn't have a zoom button.
309.
Thank you.
Yes, through 309 for the jury.
Yes.
To be fair, entering all of these photos in is frustration.
And again, Ms. Valier, what's up on the screen is that the evidence bag or box that contains those items that you're just testifying about, 7-9 and 7-19.
Yes.
This says
Now,
broken
with
glass.
regard to Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1962. Ms. Valier, now what's been depicted up on the screen and been marked as exhibit
Where'd it come from,
297.
though?
Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in just a little bit.
But broken glass from where?
Now, contained within this are 3 clear pieces of glass or plastic, if you know.
I have to look at my notes to see what I wrote them as.
My other question, Your Honor, with the court's permission, may
Yes. Go ahead, look at your notes.
Okay, the witness is reviewing notes.
what type of material is that?
3 pieces of apparent plastic.
3 pieces of apparent
Now,
plastic.
Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down just a little.
Not broken glass.
I'm sorry.
Lally should know that.
Thank you very much. The item that's contained above those 3 pieces of apparent
Straw.
plastic, what is that?
That is item 7-19. That is a black straw.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1964.
Except the way one of those is broken, it does look like glass.
Ms. Gilman. And what's up on the screen, Ms. Valier, now, and has been marked as exhibit 299, is that essentially the straw, the actual ruler with its measurements, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, with reference to the photographs that I asked you to look at before, have you had a chance to review those?
I have.
And do you recognize what's contained within those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The photos I took of item 7-11.
And what's contained in those photographs of item 7-11, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in your lab when you conducted your analysis?
I don't
in
know if we ever
reference
saw
to this case?
7-9.
It is.
You're on call, will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe I missed it. Maybe it was out of order, but I don't have 7-9 in my notes. Maybe my brain stopped working. It happens. Yeah, the straw definitely looks like a cocktail straw. We know a glass was taken from the bar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Why is this taking so long?
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1979. Again, Ms. Valier, what's up on the screen is that the bag, evidence bag that contains item 7-11.
Yes.
And for the record, that's been marked as exhibit 310.
Red, black, and clear plastic is what it says on the bag. That's from Sergeant B.
And again, Ms. Valier, what's depicted up on the screen on exhibit 311, is that the items or the pieces of plastic that were contained within the aforementioned evidence.
The edge of this plastic that has the lines on
Yes.
it looks similar to the plastic in the last, or what was in the last photo.
Now, with regard to the
Pattern.
photographs that I just placed before you before, have you had a chance to review those as well?
I have
And do you recognize what's contained within those photographs?
photos of item 7-14.
And what's contained in those photographs of item 7-14, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in your lab when you conducted your examination in this case?
It is.
Thank you.
Well, now I want to know what 12 and 13 is.
Okay.
Zero nine. Ms. Valier, if I could draw your attention up to the screen just for a moment, what's now been marked as exhibit 325. Do you recognize?
It says
that?
glass fragments.
I do.
That's the bag that contains.
This is from
items
Proctor.
7-14, is that correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have
This is
photographs.
from February 11th.
Again, Ms. Valier, what's up on the screen is that the item that was contained, labeled as item 7-14 within that.
I'm sorry, I need all of it, please.
This was collected by Proctor on February 11th and then submitted to the lab. And then the lab opened it and photographed it on the 14th. That's why it says, oh no, that's the number. Never mind. That's 7-14 is their number.
A fair and accurate portrayal of what was contained in the exhibit bag from the previous exhibits, labeled as item 7-14.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted. Were you able to review the bulk of those photographs that I just placed before you?
Yes.
And do you recognize those?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The photos of item 7-12.
If I could have, excuse me, ask those to be marked as the next exhibits from the next exhibits.
Okay.
Sam asked if we're looking at every piece. Yes, because this is the witness who did the physical matching to put things back together. So all the foundation has to be explained and the foundation has to be laid for everything this witness used to piece things together.
Thank you.
Most of this evidence
Ms. Gilman, if I could have.
will not
photograph
become readily apparent until the
2015.
very end of a witness testimony because this is all foundation. And it can be very slogging, but it all has to come in.
What's contained and what's been marked now is exhibit 328. Those, the evidence pack that contained the items labeled as 7-12.
Yes.
This is February 10th.
If I could have photograph 2018.
14 pieces of plastic and glass. This is from February 10th.
Attention up to the screen and what's now been marked as exhibit 329.
This is
those are the
7-12.
items, that were labeled collectively as 7-12 that were contained within that evidence back from the prior exhibit.
Yes.
Now, as far as those photographs that I presented to you a moment ago, have you had a chance to review those as well?
I have.
And do you recognize what's contained within those photographs?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The photos of item 7-13.
And what's contained within those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what was contained or labeled as item 7-13?
It is.
Your Honor, call method, may I approach?
Yes.
Call method, seeks to introduce the minutes.
This is going to evidence item 7-13. They were marked for identification.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1997.
This is item 7-13,
That photograph, which now been marked as
collected by Proctor, February 8th.
Evidence bag that contained
From
the items
Fairview.
labeled as 7-13.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2000.
Darn it, Lally, I didn't get the date. Hold on. This is from February 8th. These are all such different dates. This was collected at noon. The last one was collected February 10th at like 9 a.m. How many times were they back out at 34 Fairview? These are all collected from 34 Fairview all throughout the beginning of February. So this says it's one large piece, one small piece.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2000. And Ms. Webber, directing your attention to the screen, those are the items contained within that exhibit tag from prior exhibits that have been collectively labeled.
So the date on the sheet is the date she photographed it?
Yes.
As far as the photographs that I had placed before you, have you had a chance to review those?
I have.
And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
Photos of item 7-15.
And
All
what's
of these-
contained in those photographs is that a
I will be going back, and when I do quick bits this next week, we will see it, but I will be going back. We didn't get photos of the outside front of all the evidence bags. I'm sure it'll come up in cross-examination, but these collection dates are scattered across the beginning of February. All right, let's see about this one.
fair and accurate portrayal of what was contained in items.
This is 7-15?
7-15.
It is.
You want to call up, seek to introduce the witness?
No objection.
Okay, hold on one second. Madam
Court's
Clerk.
almost done for those of you that are like, are we almost done for the day? Court's almost done. It's probably done in real time, but we're almost done for the day.
Yeah.
These are being marked into evidence. And then they will be published.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Lally, those are the last exhibits we'll be doing today.
Okay. Understood. Thank you. Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 207.
Court is done. By that I mean the judge is done with Lally, but this part of the trial has to happen.
Next, Blair, if I could direct your attention.
Okay, I'm going to just start pausing on these. This was collected by Proctor on February 11th at 34 Fairview at 9 a.m.
To the screen, you recognize this as the evidence bag that contains item 7-15 that's now been marked as exhibit 352.
I do.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2077.
So 3 pieces of plastic. That's not 3.
Again, Ms. Blair.
Hold on. That's not 3. Oh, 5. 3 pieces clear plastic, 5 pieces red plastic. All right.
What's up on the screen are those the items that were collectively identified by the lab as item 7-15 from that evidence bag contained in the prior exhibit.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a huge piece of taillight. Like a massive piece of piece of taillight.
Thanks, Valier. As far as your analysis was concerned with regard to each of these items, and we'll get to that a little bit, I think, the next time. But with regard to the labels that you assigned to them as far as letters of the alphabet, A through whatever letter that you went, when you were conducting your sort of physical match analysis, how was that shown on a particular piece, or did you label those pieces, or how were you able to sort of quantify that?
The pieces that were large enough to, I printed out labels from a label maker with the lab number, the item number, and then the piece that the letter that I assigned it, so ABC, and my initials, and those are on the pieces.
And then as far as those pieces were concerned, if you were able to find some consistency between, say, piece A and piece B, and you were able to sort of fit them together,
That's
what,
helpful.
if anything, did you do to memorialize that sort of physical method?
Within the same item, if there were 2 pieces that fit together, I documented that with photos, wrote it down in my notes, and then if it was within the same item, I held it together with tape and then repackaged it still together as a single piece.
And as far as these consistencies or the matches that you were
Chad, I
examining
also
and
love a
looking
label
for,
maker.
was that solely within piece to piece, or at some point did you also look at sort of a larger piece as far as a housing unit for a tailor?
For this case?
Yes.
Yes.
And with regard to the pieces that you had sort of put together, what, if anything, were you able to do with regard to some of those pieces and the tail light housing, item 3-1?
So from those items that we just saw, I was able to piece one larger piece with many of those pieces all fit together into one piece that I then called piece one. There were some other pieces that also fit together among those question ones that I called pieces 2, piece 3, piece 4, and piece 5. Piece 1 was a physical match with item 3-1, the taillight.
Your Honor, if, I think that may
Okay.
be wrong.
All right. So
Court is at the end of the
Ms.
day.
Valier, we're going to have to have you back on Wednesday. Okay, but I'm going to ask you to wait the jurors. So we don't meet tomorrow. We'll meet Wednesday, and we'll go a full day Wednesday with an abbreviated lunch and sometime between 4 and 4:30. So please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it. I know we took a long time today with getting exhibits in before.
It
but
has
it's
to
a very
happen.
important part of the case.
Yes,
And it
it
does
is.
just take some time, so we
Yes,
appreciate
it does.
All right, we'll see you on Wednesday.
Yes to all those things. Yes to all those things.
You are muted.
All right, we're going to see if the court is done. And it sounds like the court is done as the jurors are walking out. I'm going to wait and see if they put anything on the record at the end of the day as we are finishing up with part. I don't know how much of the part, because I don't know what else this witness did, but part of the direct examination of Ashley Valier, the crime labs puzzle piece fitter.
So you are all set. You can go.
There's an official
So
name.
I was just talking to Mix Valier about whether I needed to call Lawrence Court for her or not. So you are all set. Thank you very much. All right. You don't need me for anything until Wednesday? We'll see you Wednesday.
Physical match.
All right.
Okay. Physical match. That's puzzle pieces. Physical match. Same to me. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that.
they are putting something on the record.
Your Honor, if we may approach.
Okay.
Redacted exhibit S.
We're offering.
I'm curious as to what they're approaching about. Okay. I think they're done. All right. With all of that, I don't know who the court was referring to, asking to whether this witness needed to call Lawrence. I don't know who Lawrence is, but it looks like the court is done. I just want to make sure that that there is nothing else that happens to end this feed, and there is not. So let us end this day, day 19. Okay. We are at the end of day 19. The witness, Valier from the State Crime Lab, who does, I'm going to keep getting it wrong, but I'm trying not to. The physical trace and physical match evidence is still on the stand, entering into evidence every single piece of glass and or tail light that they have at the crime lab. What's been really interesting to note is as we're finally getting into the later evidence numbers, and these are all 7- whatever through like 15, 16, as we're getting through the 7- series of evidence. On some of the evidence collection, we are getting the front of the evidence bag, and you can see that some of these pieces were collected February 8th, February 9th, February 10th by both Trooper B, Buchanan, and Trooper Proctor. But we have these evidence being collected day after day after day after day, which is wild to see. But generally, by the time we get to the crime lab witnesses, which is what we've done today, we would have heard from the lead investigator. It is confusing to get to all of the crime lab witnesses without having the people who collected the evidence, how they collected it, where from they collected it, when they collected it. So remember, this witness is only doing the physical match, whether the pieces of presumed tail light, I'm sure somebody has tested it, fit together and whether those are part of the tail light. I don't know if they're going to do it with the cup. And then there is a giant round piece of plastic that is subject to a let's approach and an objection, and then we never got back to it. I don't know what the fuck that is. I guess we'll find out or not. Law nerds, we are laying foundation. The laying foundation part of evidence is very slogging. Hopefully, when we resume with this witness on Wednesday, we will get into what was matched and what wasn't matched, but we're going to go through a bunch more photos. I now want to see the cover of every single one of these evidence bags because those dates are wild to me and we don't have any answers for them yet. And it's lending more and more credibility to statements the defense made about Trooper Proctor at the very beginning of this case in their opening statements, that there are, I'm going to put it mildly, that there are massive issues with this individual as a witness, and that is why we have not seen them yet. That's what I'm imagining. Because it's bananas that you wouldn't go through the lead investigator early on in a case, or at least before all the crime scene. Okay. So with all of that, our schedule is funky this week. There is no court on Tuesday. For live court, I am going to use that time to catch up on evidence that we missed on Tuesday afternoon last week. So we will make sure we have the proper day and all of that in the notes when we go live tomorrow. What time will I be live tomorrow? I don't know yet. I've got to figure out when my kid has an appointment and then work around that. So with all of that, remember, if you don't want to miss any coverage with me, the Law Nerd app. Tomorrow, we will be doing substantial zooming through background training and experience to get through all of those witnesses from Tuesday afternoon, hopefully in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. That's the goal. So Tuesday, no live court, but I will be here covering court from last week. Wednesday, we will be covering court all day. Thursday, we will be covering court for a half day with the Emily Show podcast dropping in the afternoon, talking about Courthouse Becky. I haven't recorded it, members. I will notify you when I record so you guys can join me for that. And then Friday, there is no court. I do not intend to be streaming. Friday, I need a day to regroup. It's been a very busy week. The following week, we will have our members only, and we will figure out what the court schedule is. But for this day, we are done. Thank goodness. Take a breath. I'm going to answer as many questions as I can, and we'll go from there. So, Law Nerds, we've got a minute to answer some questions, more than we had this morning. So let's answer some questions. Did I cut myself off with my stinger for questions? I sure did. So let's see. Inquiring Mind said, why was the submission of the taillight and the shirt so late from the actual incident? Inquiring Mind, we don't know yet. I don't know. It's so frustrating not knowing, but I don't know yet. You know why we don't know yet? They haven't questioned an investigating officer about why shit wasn't submitted to the crime lab. So we don't know. And I hate not knowing. It's so frustrating. Chesney says, when Carman to say not how light covers break. I am interested because, again, I've seen a lot of comments in the chat about the way that the the way that the taillight is broken looks odd. There will have to be, look, the jury's allowed to use their own common sense, chat, as are you. But I imagine we will get testimony of someone telling the jury, you probably think that this is not how a taillight breaks, and this is why. It's a lot of damage from hitting someone. Like it's just odd. The only time I've broken a taillight substantially is because I backed into somebody who had a trailer hitch when I was like 17 because I couldn't see the trailer hitch on the back of said car until I heard my taillight go crunch. No damage to the trailer hitch, damage to me. Excellent point made in the chat though from Biff Thundermuffin. You know, I don't pick favorites, but I do love this screen name, Biff. Frozen plastic is fragile. I don't know how people don't understand that. Biff, a lot of people don't live in areas where shit freezes. People in Massachusetts do. And we will hopefully hear more about that from witnesses to come. But this is also why local juries are so important. The things that are known to a local jury in Massachusetts are different than what is known to someone like me, who spent most of my life in Southern California, and that was never even a thing for me. I never even considered it. I also definitely broke my windshield wiper shortly after I moved to Nashville, and my car froze for the first time. And then my neighbors from Michigan were like, oh, sweetie, no, that's not what we're going to do. So with all of that, thank you, Biff, for pointing it out. Kimberly Smith said, do you think Proctor will testify or will the other investigator? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I can't, I just can't wrap my head around what this prosecution's doing. So I can't even think through reasonably what somebody would do. I don't know, because I don't know what they're doing. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that very well. A peaceful, I think maybe close. Taillights aren't just plastic though. They wouldn't use it if it cracked to pieces when frozen. I mean, I think frozen and hit is part of the conversation here, but hit by what? So we don't know. And Jen said, I don't buy the temperature reasoning. It wasn't that cold. So we will see. This is why we have to wait and see what comes into evidence, because what comes into evidence is going to be presented by experts that can and do testify to things within their realm of expertise. So, and again, local juries. Just Rhonda said the Commonwealth is damned if they do, damned if they don't with calling Proctor. You know how the Commonwealth could have solved this problem, Just Rhonda? Figuring out if their lead investigator was such a disaster that they could not bring this case forward. Even if the Commonwealth 100% believes in their case, just the Commonwealth is like, no, we can prove it. Absolutely. But Proctor is such a terrible witness, and we don't know if that's true yet. We haven't seen the testimony. We've only seen the opening statements with regard to Proctor and Proctor's problems. But the delay in the prosecution calling Proctor lends some credibility to that for me, because I am still left with these questions. But if you can't call your lead investigator, I don't know how you choose to take the case to trial. If you look at a case and go, I can't call this lead investigator, then you really can't go forward. So, Lally said they would call state troopers. I don't know if he said Proctor by name, because there's also Buchanan. So I don't know what we're going to get. I don't know. But if there's credibility to the defense's argument, statement during opening statements, that Trooper Proctor was texting people that he was looking in Karen Reed's phones to find nudes of her, it's going to be real hard for the jury to put that out of their mind when you've got so much else going on in this investigation that is wild. You've got the woman at the crime lab swabbing the whole freaking thing. Just the whole damn thing. What? You've got butt dials everywhere. You got phones that are missing. Just, I don't even know. And then they didn't even test some of the stuff that they collected. I'm waiting to see why anyone thought this was a good idea. And I'm just not there yet. Turf Smurf. I read that with the Papa Smurf. How's the remarkable experiment going? I have really been enjoying it. So the digital notebook I'm using, I have been very much enjoying it. I have over 80 pages of notes for this trial, and I haven't had to burn through multiple additional notebooks. And it doesn't make my hand as tired because of how smooth the writing surface is. And I'm experimenting with different little grips so that my hand doesn't get tired, which is fantastic. So I really enjoy it so far. That's where I'm at. Just Jill said, if the federal investigation finds this case was tainted, would that possibly have ramifications for other cases where Proctor was lead? It could, depending on what the issue is. What, if any, would those be? Unfortunately, Just Jill, I can't give you more of an answer without having more information about the federal investigation, which I don't now. After this case is done, I will go back and look at that, but I don't have the information at the moment. So if you find, depending what they find with Trooper Proctor, yes, I would imagine it could lead to them looking into other cases. And yes, that could have ramifications. Nicole said, we need the lead investigators to testify before these witnesses to lay foundation. One would think we need the chain of custody stuff. It's wild. Kim Berger, I get asked this question a lot, and a few of you asked me this question in person when I saw you this weekend. Will Reed be able to sue once acquitted, or is that tough? Again, I'm not assuming Reed will be acquitted. We're not at the end of the prosecution's case yet, but I'm not assuming Reed will be convicted either. I'm still waiting for the prosecution to convince me why we're all here. So that's where I'm at. But if Reed is acquitted, can Reed sue police? That can be very tough, but it depends on what else is known. And so without having more information, I can't give a great answer because I just don't have enough info. But I have said repeatedly that when this trial is done, I will look at the stuff outside this trial. I didn't want to look at it going into trial, and I saw a ton of it in the chat today. And that's no shade to anyone, but I really try hard to stick to what is being shown in evidence. And there was a lot of, but the victim's belt's missing, but the victim's belt's missing. And then the pictures of the victim's pants come in, and there is a belt attached to the pants. So whether or not the belt is missing from evidence after the fact, we have not seen. But the victim's belt was on his pants when pants were submitted to the lab. So I have tried very hard to stay out of all of the known things to the internet in this case to see just what comes in evidence. I will go back later. So I've got big chain of custody questions though, and not knowing where stuff comes from is so incredibly frustrating. It's like, and not knowing what days. The cross-examination of this chain of custody is going to be wild. And it's not this last witness's fault. This last witness is an expert that takes what's submitted. And so they take what's submitted, open it, photograph it, test it, and do their job. Where Proctor got it from to submit it is the big question there. And I imagine because this witness is incredibly likable and seems to be very much just by the book, this is what I do, this is what I don't do, that's it. The defense will ask a lot of those questions about the different dates and what happened and what have you. Rune said, my entire front was destroyed by hitting a deer at 70 kilometers an hour, but the lights were fine. That's so interesting to know. I have, knock on wood, I have not. I have been very, very mindful of deer and have not yet had that happen, but I am aware that it absolutely can. I also have no idea how fast 70 kilometers an hour is. I'm sorry, but I can't. Before you decided on Remarkable, did you consider the Amazon Scribe? I'm curious how they might compare. Music to My Soul, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos comparing them and decided to go with the Remarkable. I very much like the way that the screen feels and that it looks. But again, like everything, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. So that's what I did. Dustin said, sidebar question, great job on Housewife and Hustler 2. Thank you. Can we get an episode with all the behind the scenes details, how they came to you, what you think? We can talk about it, Dustin, in our members only. Absolutely, we can. Absolutely, we can. I think I've talked about it a bit. I know I have some behind the scenes photos, but we can if you guys want to. Yep. Oh, I'm not going to pronounce that right. Dermopositor 2? Can a jury nullify early? No, they can't. The case has to be submitted to the jury for the jury to do anything, which means you have to be at the end of the case for the jury to do anything. What will happen at the end of the prosecution's case, and we seem to be, like, I feel like we are on the Vegas Strip, and you're like, look, it's just down there to get to this place. And it is not nearly as fucking close as it looks. And the more you keep walking, the more it feels like it is getting further away. I feel like that's where we are in the prosecution's case. Like, you feel like you're getting near the end of the prosecution's case, and then it's getting further and further and further. And it's making me just exhausted, honestly. So I don't know when we're going to get to the end, but when we get to the end, whenever we get to the end of the prosecution's case, then there will be motions to dismiss, and motions to dismiss will be argued, I hope, in open court. I hope. K-Rab, good to see you. Seems likely all that adds up to more than was missing from the taillight of her vehicle. It's a lot of stuff, right? Like, it's a lot of stuff. Odd pieces that fit together were found together. Or not, Jake. It just depends, right? Odd or not odd. Polycarbonate is very strong and very difficult to break. Hitting a human at all but extraordinary force wouldn't break it. It seems odd to me that that's the damage from hitting, apparently at slow speed, a person. It's just odd. So, Paul Printed Heart said, how did it go from cracked to in pieces? I don't know. But the witnesses said cracked. And then Carrie Roberts said there was like a little piece missing. And then like I could see that there was metal to the entire thing being broken. I don't know. Celeste asked, if Karen is found guilty and the FBI finds the case was bad against her, could she be set free or retried again? It really depends on how that goes down. But if Karen Read is convicted at the end of all of this, and then the ongoing federal investigation turns up more, it's absolutely and can absolutely be grounds for appeal and can be grounds for an overturned verdict. Oftentimes an overturned verdict allows for the opportunity for retrial, but it depends on what's found to whether retrial is practical. Even if it's legally available, it might not actually be practical or able to do. So it really just depends. It's hard to look forward because we just don't have enough information as we're going through this trial. We go prosecution's case, and then there will be a motion essentially to dismiss, or a motion for directed verdict at that point, saying, Your Honor, no reasonable jury could find guilt on this evidence. The state hasn't met their burden at this point. We're not even putting on a defense case. Yeet immediately. It's very, very, very rare that those are granted. Then the defense case, then the prosecution rebuttal case, then closing arguments, then jury instructions, or jury instructions and closing arguments, then it goes to the jury. It's wild. So Rune, I don't know. There's a lot of experts to come, so we'll see. Greg said from Fall River Reporter, one juror had his head in his lap during the previous witness, and juror 4 is giving witness lingering looks. I mean, they're probably just sitting there begging for help with their eyes, like help. us, like blink twice, get us out of here. Can you imagine being on this jury? How exhausted they must be. And it's hot. It's hot in there. It's hot. They're tired. Lally is Lally. They can't talk about the case with anybody. It would be so hard. It would be so hard. LGT says it absolutely boggles my mind that Brian Albert never went outside to check out the crime scene. I would have been out there combing through the not marked crime scene of a friend. Too many holes. There's lots of questions. And Bell said, I don't know how to pronounce that. Max? Valier uses they, them pronouns. I did not know that. I know it's hard for neurospicy brains. Please do your best. I heard the judge at the end, but I also heard Lally using other pronouns. So if I got that wrong, I apologize. And we will do it the next time that the witness testifies, because I was going off of what Lally was saying. Blessed in Texas said, I'm 40 minutes behind, so still on lab analysis. In your opinion, Emily, is Lally inexperienced or lacks skill at his job? Why doesn't he do it in order? I don't think Lally is inexperienced at all. Like, you would never give an inexperienced prosecutor this case. I feel like there's a lot that we don't know, a lot that I don't know, and that Lally has gotten distracted by the defense's theories. This is completely my personal opinion and speculation. Personal opinion and speculation. That Lally is trying to get out ahead of all of the defense's theories instead of just trying their case. And if you do that, you can very easily lose your case in the weeds. And it feels a bit like that's what's happened from opening statements. That the defense has successfully gotten the prosecution to chase their own tail to try to disprove everything the defense has thrown up in previous court hearings, in the media, in statements, in whatever. That they're trying to disprove all of that and not just prove their case. If you have a good case, just prove your case. And then the defense will do all of the defense things. And then you have a rebuttal case. Just prove your case. But it feels like it is chasing down every freaking rabbit hole that could possibly be there. I don't think Lally needed to call Colin Albert for anything. Nothing about the testimony of Colin Albert moved Lally's case forward in any way. If the defense wants to throw up that, but Colin Albert was there, call him in rebuttal or let the defense call him or whatever. It's just kind of wild. So that's my thought on it. It seems like they're trying to disprove the defense as opposed to prove their case. And that is not a good way to prove a case at all. But it also feels like he doesn't want to be there. So a lot of you are saying it feels like Lally was forced to take the case. Yeah, there's not a lot of energy behind Lally's prosecution. Carrie Boss said, if Creighton can do it, Lally can do it. Creighton had a lot of energy for his case. Creighton was ready. Like, you want to talk about a prosecutor that had some smoke for that case. Creighton was ready to go. Creighton started in opening with like, bam, bam, or pow, pow, or whatever he said. 2 gunshots like that. Creighton was ready to prosecute Murdaugh. You could see it. Creighton believed in his case. He believed in his witnesses. He believed in that Snapchat video. Creighton was ready to go. Lally does feel like he is being dragged through this prosecution. He just. But again, prosecutors have a duty. If you think you can't prove the case, then you don't try it. And if that means you get fired, again, then you turn around and sue your office for retaliation. And that sucks. But ethics have to come first. So it just does not feel that Lally is, that started an opening. I think Lally said murder once in opening. There was just no energy there at all. It's the just, I've never seen a murder prosecution with less energy. I have seen prosecutors not be overly dramatic or hyperbolic. Look at the prosecution team against Darrell Brooks. They had a tremendous amount of energy for that case. You could tell how strongly they felt about that prosecution, but they were not dramatic. They were not overwrought. They were very linear. They were very clear, and they put that case together piece by piece on that map. Piece, 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 piece. But they kept it very neutral, especially for a pro per defendant. I thought it was very appropriate. I thought they were incredible. Same with the business prosecutor. Very clear in how they were doing their prosecution, but it's a strong case. There's not much they need to do other than just put it forward. So it's just, I don't know. I don't like it. Polly Claire said difficult not to prosecute when a cop died. I don't think so. Again, this was not an in the line of duty case. People do have accidents that cause death, and not all of those get prosecuted, no matter what the person's profession was. The thing that's still the hardest for me to get around in this case is that this victim deserved so much better. All victims deserve better than this investigation. This investigation is awful. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I have not talked to a prosecutor that's like, yeah, I would go to trial on this. KP said, hey, EDB, can we get a birthday shout out for my son, CJ? He's a baby, Leonard. CJ, happy birthday. We had to change into something more cheerful. Happy birthday, CJ. And thank you, KP, for the super chat that allowed me to change directions from just ranting. I am mad. This is so... Maisie said, couldn't the glass at the scene be from that morning? I don't know if we know when the glass is from at this point. Nothing feels clear. The thing, I found the crime scene. I have evidence stuck to my hat. I'm teasing. I can't tell if it's my hair or Fred and George's hair. I mean, human, animal, could be anything. It's making me crazy. For those of you who don't get this joke, it's from a members only live. But the thing that's going to stand out as we move on is that the crime scene investigation unit that came out only found 7 pieces of taillight and a shoe. And then days and weeks later, other pieces of taillight start trickling in. Okay. Andre, thank you so much. I hear you were on fire at CrimeCon. Congratulations. Thanks for the comfort viewing while getting over COVID. Recover well, and I'm happy to be here. And I enjoy doing in-person stuff. It normally takes a toll on my throat, which apparently does not do well in hotels, and talking over background noises, but that's been something I've struggled with always, losing my voice at concerts and stuff. I continue to try, but sometimes it happens. Rune asked, is it usual for drinks to be allowed in a courtroom? Generally, water is allowed. When it's really hot, the judge will open that up. Some judges allow coffee. In Depp v. Heard, the judge allowed drinks and snackies. There was like candy on the table and stuff. So it really just depends on the court, but it's not the weirdest thing ever to see drinks that they're sitting there, and sometimes it's all that's going to keep you awake. So Sam says, am I the only one? I started this because I wanted to answer this. Am I the only one that finds it strange that Karen Reed has shown 0 emotions in 6 weeks? I don't know if other people find it strange. I can give you my opinion on it, and the chat can give you theirs. But for defendants, there is not much they can do. If they show emotion, Murdaugh, a lot of people will say that it is forced. a jury might think that it is forced. If they show no emotion, it will also be commented on. There is a no-win situation. I think it's appropriate to try to maintain a neutral demeanor during trial. I think that's what most defense attorneys would prefer. But ask the defense attorneys around the interwebs. Natalie Lawyer Chick and Ian Runkle are both practicing defense attorneys. Ask them what they prefer. But you do see her nodding along. You do see her sometimes looking at her attorney. We do see reactions, but not overdrawn. There were times where Murdaugh's emotions were so overdrawn, I was like, you got to be fucking joking me, man. Really? And that can look worse to the jury. I think she has been fairly neutral. And I think that being neutral is appropriate. I also imagined it is advised by her defense counsel, and that's me speculation. That's me speculating that it's advised. But remaining fairly neutral is generally what would be expected. So, let's see. I swear I'm still cool, said girl. Lally Salty should be an actual emotion. There's a full physical reaction to the discombobulated questioning. It hurts my brain and it makes me mad all at the same time. I want to know what happened in this case, and every day I feel like I know less. Like every single day we cover trial, I feel like I know less. That's not good. Melanie said, what age do people no longer get called for jury duty? It varies wildly by jurisdiction. So I can't answer generally because it varies so much by jurisdiction. Sassy Eric, I love the Pride Sasquatch. Hi, Emily. Will there be a motion for dismissal before the defense present their case? Yeah, I think there will be. Do you think it will pass? I will be interested to see what evidence comes in before then, because we're not done yet. Doesn't Lally have a mentor guide him or feedback? Nurse Janice, generally not, actually. He's a seasoned prosecutor. He has, I would imagine, has been at the prosecutor's office quite a while. So generally, no. And not all agencies have enough attorneys to watch people in trial and give feedback. Not all attorneys are amenable to feedback. So I had some coworkers who were definitely not as good in trial as some of my other coworkers that were not open to that feedback. So it really depends on the attorney. So that I'm going to answer just a few more questions, and then we will be scooting. Nikki said, in reference to George and the squirrel, my obese dog caught and deleted a squirrel. It was so sad. And now I yell, run squirrel, every time I let her out. Hubby thinks I'm nuts, but he didn't have to dispose of Rocky. And see, it's hard when your animals get all feisty in their yard. So I don't disagree with being like, squirrel, run. My animals generally stay behind the window or on the screened-in catio, so they do not interact with the wild animals, but they definitely like to look. So, but one of my close friends, on her wedding day, we were starting to get ready at her home before we took the limo or whatever up to her wedding venue, and her cat came in gleeful with a bird in its mouth and dropped it in the middle of where we were all getting ready. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is good luck. I don't know if this is bad luck. I don't know if this is a wedding present, but there you go. But there you go. So let's see. I work at a DNA lab, I think, and we do not take pics of how we receive the evidence. Interesting. We only take pics if the packaging is ripped or torn. What we do, that is good to know. And I love your Ninetales. Like, that's fantastic. I've been playing with Ninetales a lot in Pokemon Go Sleep. So there's been that. Biff said, for those who live in snow, it's like glue, especially on the backside of a big box with the wind mostly blocked. So we will see what happens. So we will see. The World Wonder said, we applied more rigorous controls when my class made silly putty in junior high chemistry 25 years ago. There are some things here that are odd. Does the Commonwealth have to call Trooper Proctor to provide a proof of chain of custody? I think they probably do, but I don't know if they can do it with Buchanan. So we'll see. It's just that there are so many things here that are making me crazy. Kathy said her skill level reminds me of the weapons expert Hannah Gutierrez Reed. I believe that is going to the expert that swabbed just everything with one swab. We're going to talk, next week, we're going to talk more about the Hannah Gutierrez Reed case because the panel at CrimeCon was wild. Wild, wild. Julio asked one more time, EDB, what kind of e-note taker do you have? The Remarkable. Did you buy it? Yes. Do you like it? Yes. Do you have to take pictures to upload notes? No, you don't. But I think there is after the 1 year period, I think there's a subscription. So look at that. I don't know if all of them have a subscription, but it was fairly low cost to sync it, but it syncs really easily. And I think it's going to basically replace what I was using my iPad Pro for, because I can also highlight PDFs on it. And it's just, for me, easier on my eyes than the iPad Pro because it does not reflect. Like, it is a very muted e-ink glass, and that just works better. That just works better on my eyes. But I am particularly light sensitive. Also, the iPad Pro can get heavier than this. This is much lighter weight than an iPad Pro, and it's less distracting to me because I don't have any notifications popping up. I quite like it. I should have done this first. Emma Max said, would there be any benefit to prosecution letting the defense call Proctor instead, getting to cross him, limiting the defense questioning style? The defense would, I don't know how Proctor would testify. The defense might ask to treat him as a hostile witness, and that might be granted if he is not forthcoming. But I think it looks really bad. Like, what do you guys think? There's over 20,000 of us here. What do you think if the prosecution does not call the lead investigator? Like, what assumption do you make from that? Because I don't think it looks good. Like, I don't think it looks good at all. Like, at all. So, Sammy Spills the Tea says, I live next to Canton. I was home recovering from gallbladder removal. It was a blizzard, over 20 inches of snow. Chad, I'm not going to put up a poll just because I'm just about wrapping up. So that is, I'm just a B2. I'm sorry I didn't see this earlier. B2, thank you for the gifted memberships. I appreciate you, and I appreciate that. It's good to see you in the chat. Jillian said, Paw Nerd Alert, just got a gray tabby named Remus and a ginger cat named Ron. Thought you might enjoy the names. Absolutely do. Love my Fred and George. Absolutely. They are my mischief managed boy cats. Cloud Foe. Cloud Fox. What are the two? We're going to go with it. 53rd birthday was yesterday. Birthday present to myself was the meet and greet in Nashville. Hope you enjoyed the drinks. I did enjoy the drinks. They were really fun. And thank you for coming. It was really a good time. So Sam says, I have a chest infection. Thanks for helping me. I don't know if I've done everything to help, but today wasn't particularly funny. So hopefully I didn't make it harder to breathe when we laughed, because today there was not a lot of laughing. Today was just a, what are we doing? It was a, what are we doing kind of a day. So we will see what happens. We will see what happens with Proctor. I think that's one of the big questions. When are we going to see the coroner? Are we going to hear from Proctor? What else are they going to do about chain of custody? Because right now the chain of custody is kind of a mess, and the defense can't get in the chain of custody log because it's hearsay. They got some of it in. I think pieces of that will continue to come in. They might not get the physical log in. The testimony will come in. But it's just a wild, wild, wild case. Marie asked, did I get to meet Ian? Yes, and we got to hang out, and it was lovely. We will talk more about CrimeCon on a members only live and the YouTube event this week and all the rest of it. We'll talk all that behind the scenes, because even as I started talking about it briefly at the top of stream today, there was definitely a number of, can we just get back to the trial? Well, the law nerds are here and we like it. So we will see. So, but for those of you who have asked, will I be at CrimeCon next year? I do not know. I do not know if I will. It was good to see people, and we will talk about the rest of it later. So I do not know. So River Van, I'm glad you're here too. Look, what I will say before we wrap up today is that getting to hear all of your stories about this incredible community and how much it's supported you is amazing. I still don't have words for how incredible it is to get to see y'all connect with each other in incredible ways. The amount of law nerds I saw who came to say hi by themselves from out of state and found their friends and found their people and were able to have a laugh, have a drink, talk about cases, and really bridge that online, offline, IRL gap was incredible. And the stories that you have shared about how this community has supported you, sustained you, checked in on you, celebrated you, mourned with you, it's absolutely incredible. And for everyone who said, I needed this community to me in person, thank you. And just what I said to each and every one of you, including Pants, we talked about this, is that I need you guys too. I love this community. It's incredibly special. And so it's really lovely to see. And we will be doing more to make sure that we can get the law nerds together in person and in a way that is not always connected to other people's events. So I will be. I saw some of you asking if I'm traveling to VidCon. Yes, I will be traveling to VidCon. I don't know what if any time we will have at VidCon, because my schedule for VidCon is a little packed already and it's not done yet. So we will do the best that we can, but there will be time in the future to get the law nerds together. So but law nerds, I will see you guys tomorrow. What time? I'm not sure. I'm going to message you in the app because I've got to go check in with the family. And then I'm going to go. That squirrel is just back up to fuckery. Okay. I'm trying. I'm literally squirreling, but it's an actual squirrel that's up to no good. So with all of that, Henhouse, it's good to see you in the chat. We had this conversation too. And it was so nice to hear in person how incredible this community is. So with all of that, chat, you are bae. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. We are out for today. I will see you tomorrow. I will update it in the app. I will post it here. I don't know exactly what time yet. Is it going to be 8 a.m.? No, it will be after 8 a.m. So those of you that are on the West Coast, you are welcome. And I will see you guys soon. Thanks for being here. Bye. You can stay up to date with everything I'm covering and fast notifications on our free iOS and Android app at lawnerdapp.com or search the App Store for Law Nerd. You can also follow me around social media. And don't forget to check out my podcast, The Emily Show, with quick bits dropping every Monday, summarizing everything I do here on the live streams on Tuesday and Thursday for when you just have time for the quick bits. Thanks for being a law nerd.